here today, to be honest with you. I ran into a big traffic jam on where I-40 and I-30 intersect up north. And it was slow. And then all of a sudden, as I came onto I-30, there's like nothing there.
Yep.
Everybody just suddenly was doing 90 miles an hour like any morning.
Yeah. I hit the traffic about Sam's. So
was that when you hit it?
Yeah, it's just,
I hit it a little bit before that. In fact, I could see it slowing down, and then it came to a stop.
Yeah.
Which is really, really crazy.
You guys experience that quite a bit?
No,
not really.
It's not been that bad. I don't know why it was, because I didn't see the remnants of a wreck or anything like that.
Yeah, unless it was on up after the split there and on the other side. That's the only thing because the traffic on that side was still moving pretty slow.
Was it going slow? Okay, I didn't notice that.
Apart, so.
I was trying to figure out how I was going to get around all the cars in front of me. So I wasn't late. I texted. Did you get my text, Val, saying I was late?
Yeah, I got it, and I was gonna tell you go this way, go that way, because I know all the back ways.
Yeah.
I don't like to sit in traffic.
Well, sitting there, there's nowhere to get off.
Yeah.
Where was it at again?
Where I-40 converges in with I-30.
Coming from North Little
Coming
Rock right
from
there?
Cabot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nowhere to get off and turn around and go a different way.
Well, you could take Shannon Hills.
I could have taken Shannon Hills, but
and then you get off and go on JFK and then go all the way up down that way.
Yeah, that would have been longer, I think.
A lot longer.
Not if you're stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
But if you're not stuck in traffic, then that's different.
Well, anyway, it was crazy. But anyway, I don't know if it's that way now. Good luck to you getting to work this morning. Just letting you know.
Our chopper is broken. Our chopper in the sky is broken today.
I didn't have the 25 cents to put a little bit of gas into the engine. I didn't have that. Then I got to the station, and the door lock bringing me into the station wouldn't open.
I had the magic touch.
Yeah, it looked like you used, I won't say what the numbers are. The first two numbers you punched in were not the numbers that I have been using ever since they put that in there. It had started working erratically last week, and I told them that they should check the battery because those are all battery operated. And then you walked right up and you went and punched in two. Did they change the number and give it to you?
What have you been using? Oh, I'm not going to ask you on air.
Yeah, I've been using the same number.
999.
And I've been walking into
999.
And I've been coming into the station without a problem. So something going on. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, Scott got here on time.
Yeah.
He got here before I did. He texted me and said, I'm sitting outside the station and I can't get in. And I wanted to text him back, but I'm driving down the interstate, and I didn't think that was a good idea.
Probably speeding.
So I didn't do that. Yeah, I was wanting to get to the station on time.
You know, they speaking of texting, you see they're going to have these new things. I sent you that crotch cam.
Well, yeah, that's for where they're doing work on the road.
Yeah, you're going to be getting pictures of your right there.
Yeah. And
to see if you're texting. So make sure you do it up high so they can see you through the window instead.
The key is that they when they do that, that's so that the people who are out working that zone can have, look for you
and have some safety. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm like, my kid's like, I want to get a motorcycle. I'm like, no, you don't. Not right now. Not unless you're going to strap it to a trailer and drive it out in the country where there isn't anybody on texting.
You never wanted. Hey, let me tell you what. You never wanted to ride a motorcycle on the interstates.
Well, not anymore. People don't see you.
Yeah, well,
they don't even see cars.
Well, yeah. It's not that they can't see you. It's that their mind is somewhere else and they're driving.
Well, I'm pretty sure that little girl that hit me last March, I mean, she slammed, bam, right. I was at a dead standstill because I had just averted an accident because someone slammed on their brakes in front of me. And I was like a dime in the middle. And I saw her. I was like, no, 50, 55, 60 miles an hour. And I know she was texting. I know she was, because how could you not see me stopped?
Well, I asked that same question, and I think it's demon possession.
Could be. She's a sweet girl. It turns out she was a friend of mine. She was a niece of my friends, and I was like, dang.
Yeah, the last time I got rear-ended was over towards another city, and the roads were icy, and I'm crawling along, and I'm looking up at the car in back of me, and it's coming at me pretty quick. And I'm going, Linda, you got your belt on.
Yeah.
Brace for impact.
And I said, hold on, we're going to get hit.
Oh, that was me. That was me. I saw it in the rearview mirror, and then behind her, I saw a semi. So I was like, I hurried up, but before she hit me first. But after I hurried up and got to the other side in case he couldn't stop either. But it was
a teenage girl, and she was
same here.
She's she's being all apologetic. I'm sorry.
I know, they're crying. I felt so bad.
I looked at her and I said, what were you doing? And she says, I was trying to dial a friend. I said, don't take your eyes off the road.
Yeah, don't do it.
That's all I said.
Don't do it.
Don't take your eyes off the road. Mm-mm. Billy, it's good to see you.
Good to see you this morning.
You've been sick over the weekend.
Yeah, I was a little under the weather, but feeling much better this morning. Yeah, something like that. So I
had life group, last night, and I didn't even get to go because Linda got sick in the afternoon.
Yeah, and
so if my wife is, trying to bring up her toenails through her mouth, I typically stay home.
Okay. Yeah.
What was that?
Coughing.
She was throwing up.
That.
Okay.
And I'm sorry. The next thing that was going to come up was her toenails.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she was working at it hard.
Poor girl.
Yeah, it's not fun. I'll talk to her today, and she's going to say something like, "Man, I'm sore," and I'm. It's because you were puking.
Yeah.
What did y'all eat?
That's so hard. Nothing unusual. Absolutely nothing unusual.
There's a summer bug going around.
Yeah, there's that stomach bug was a norovirus or whatever they call it. You can get that going. Now, it's not been 24 hours yet, so let's see. 24 hours would be at about 2:45. So yeah, let's see if I get home from work before.
You want to trade seats with me?
I'm telling you, I felt that way yesterday. I went to Home Depot and everybody was hacking, but then I thought about it and I was like, oh, it's the flowers.
Yeah.
Everybody was coughing and sneezing, and I was like, you can tell what people are allergic to.
Well, let me get these guys underway at 7:13 on a Monday morning. We've told you this is the stuff that drives me crazy. I'll be honest, I handle major problems really well. I don't. If they call me and say somebody's went to the hospital or whatever, I don't get all freaked out and stuff. But when small things keep happening one after the next, after the next, after the next, I lose my cool real easy at that point.
That Chinese water torture thing.
Yeah.
Please, Lord, I do not need yet another item on my list.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Billy Bob Thornton on the last episode of this season's Landman, where everything is going wrong.
Yeah.
And he says, well, what else you going to throw at me, basically? And there's a major car wreck right in front of him.
Right. Cars
are like flipping up in the air and everything. And he comes to a stop and he just rolls his eyes up to the sky, I understand. I can understand that. So how was your time off, Mr.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. We went to Oklahoma to see an old professor of mine, and then to see some ministry colleagues. But the primary reason was to go and visit my son and my granddaughter. My granddaughter was doing a play, and so
cool.
she was actually played 7 different parts in this play.
Oh,
so
wow.
she was doing a lot of quick changes and things.
Right.
And so she had invited my wife and I to come and watch her. So
how old is she?
She's 13.
Oh.
So we went and we watched her. So it was good.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Was it like one of the first productions she's done?
No, she's done other stuff, but this is the first major play. She's been in other things, but this is the first major play, and she did a good job.
Usually, when you're like in middle school and you're doing drama, you do Spoon River Anthology or something like that, where you're one of the dead people talking from the grave. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen?
No.
Spoon? Yeah, that's what it is. It's about a bunch of people who are dead, and they're talking about all of their struggles they had during life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's really well written.
Well, I think she takes after me a bit in that I used to. I mean, I started my university as a theater major. I was at one point in high school. I was in 5 plays at one time.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I did.
How do you keep them straight?
No, that was a part of the challenge. As a matter of fact, I was just about to audition for a movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, called Full Metal Jacket.
Oh,
wow.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
So I'd gotten the ability to audition for that, and it's about that time that the Lord grabbed a hold of me, and they would write reviews about the plays I was in, and when they would write a review, even if I wasn't playing the lead, they would talk most about me.
Oh, wow.
And so my theater teacher came to me and she said, "Do you know why this happened?" So no, she said, "There's a
you're good."
She said you have something we call stage presence."
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then after that, the Lord really convicted me and says, "You know why they're writing about you? Because you're using the anointing on your life that I gave you to preach
To do
to act
something
with.
else.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And
cool.
that's why people are drawn to you." Because I'd answered the call to preach whenever I was 14. And so when that happened, then I realized, well, that's why this is happening to me. And so, a lot of these music stars, they got their beginning in a choir somewhere.
Yeah.
They're all
Usually
moving
church choir.
They're all moving towards God, and then they got side railed. And I said, I'm not going to do that. So I turned down the audition for the movie and shifted gears and changed the direction of my life.
That's interesting because I was in seminary
Mm-hmm.
and I was having no problem in seminary.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I started listening to what people were saying around me about I'm going to have this big church and all that kind of stuff. And I'd look at them and say, well, what if God calls you to be right on the border with China?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to be, well, God wouldn't do that. And I said, what do you mean God wouldn't do? God will put you where you need to be.
That's right.
Right.
Where He wants you to be. Yeah,
And
for sure.
Anyway, there were several different things like that happened. And I figured the ministry probably wasn't for me.
Mm.
And, but I knew I had a talent to sit down and talk with people and
Right.
stuff. So that's when I switched over big time in the radio.
Mm-hmm.
God definitely didn't give me a talent to run my mouth. So,
Right. Right.
Yeah. You really do have trouble coming out of your shell.
I do.
He is.
I do.
He's a very shy and retiring guy.
My first play was in 1989. I think we did Guys and Dolls,
Mm.
and that was the first and I think the last time I participated in a musical. So
Oh, right.
it was
You were singing and dancing?
yes.
Ooh,
yes,
I'd love to
it
see the video of
it was-
that.
No, I did several others. So growing up, I was an extraordinarily shy individual. We moved. My mother once told me we moved 16 times before I was 12 years old. So
Wow.
I never had a chance to form attachments.
Uh-huh.
So when I got to, but I hate weakness. I've always been that way. And I got to junior high and realized I had no social skills. So I went and talked to.
So you were Sheldon then.
Yeah, I went and talked to the counselor at junior high. We had a speech and drama class up at the high school, but not the junior high. And I went, hey, can I go up there and start doing this? And she went, that is totally out of your normal. And I went, yes, and that's why I want to go do it.
Yeah.
So I got special permission as an 8th and 9th grader to go to the high school for 2 of my electives to do. And so I did 5 years of speech and drama,
Excellent.
just trying to overcome that. I can't stand in front of people and talk, and it seems to have worked out okay. For
Yeah, I
me.
think
you
it
seem to
has.
be doing all right.
Yeah.
Is the first thing they taught you is act like nobody has their clothes on?
No, the very first thing she taught me was to get over yourself. That was Miss Jeannie Gray. She said, if you'll get over yourself, you'll be much better
And
off.
typically, when you're on stage, you can't see anybody anyway.
Yeah,
The lights are in
are
your
too
face, so
bright.
you can't really see, and you're just talking to the dark. Whenever a big, okay, you want to call it a break, I was at a ski weekend in Colorado, or week, and there was a shuttle bus that took us from the hotel to the slopes, and the bus was packed, and I wound up sitting beside this woman. And it turned out that she started asking me questions about, and I was in high school, started asking me all kinds of questions. And so I started telling her about theater and so forth, because I was going to major in that when I got out of high school. And it turned out that she was a producer for PBS.
Huh?
And she said, well, would you be willing to talk to me about some commercials and things? So long story short, from that and from my relationship with her, I was cast in several commercials. And so I started doing commercials, public service announcement type commercials for PBS. at that time. Please don't look up any.
No, I'm just I'm learning.
I'm Googling already. What are you talking about?
I don't think they'll be available anymore. But
you would be surprised. The internet is forever. So,
at any rate, yeah, I'm sure we're well off topic. Whatever this morning.
Everybody has learned something about you today.
They have, yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So my granddaughter's taken after me. So that was where it all started.
That's
my
right,
granddaughter
okay.
is taken after me, I think, in that way.
Has she been bitten by the bug?
I don't know, but she's enjoying it. And I have a grandson in Texas who he's kind of a ham, and I think he might have a little bit of his grandfather in him as well.
I will tell you about what I was watching over the weekend. When we get back, we got to take a break, and that I read it or I watched it and thought that's really interesting, and it's about a comedian, and I'll tell you about it when we get back. Bible guys, you're in 722, and kind of how do you end up doing something that the Lord never told you about doing? But all of a sudden, right in the middle of your plans, he changes everything. We'll talk about that when we return on the Dave Ellswick Show.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The practice of manufacturing collisions between the Vatican and the President of the United States has continued with Pope Leo XIV because he is new in the job. And President Donald Trump, of course, always provides copy. Take an unknown, mix in the very well-known, and 1,000 columns are launched. The best commentary on this situation actually came from Vice President J.D. Vance more than a year ago. Quote, "It's very hard to fit a 2,000-year-old institution into the politics of 2025, Vice President Vance told me in March of last year. He added, I try not to do that. Reporters ought to be taking heed of that as they cover the Pope and the President. Tell us what the principal said or posted if done specifically with the other party name. Don't overlay prior points of view. That's as silly as playing mind reader. A suggestion. Whenever you hear or read a reporter asserting what a public figure thinks or feels, change your feed or at least turn on your misinformation shield."
Did you know that Americans spend more than $2.5 billion each year dealing with termites and repairing the damage they cause? If you don't have a termite warranty policy, you could end up paying for expensive repairs. But thanks to the Bugman, you can be protected. They use the most effective products available. Whether it's a new construction or you already have a termite problem, the Bugman will help you protect your investment. Call the Bugman at 663-9464 or go to bugman.com and check out their coupons for savings. That's bugman.com.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The Dave Ellswick Show is back. 101.1. The Answer.
So I like to watch a lot of those kind of biography, documentaries that they do. And I was flipping through the channels on, Prime. On Prime. And I was going through them, and I had watched some fast pitch softball. I watched Texas defeat Ole Miss, and was decided I didn't want to watch any more fast pitch women's softball. So I'm just looking at different shows, and I came across this one. I go, now that looks interesting, because I knew who they were going to talk about. I knew a little bit about him, but I didn't know everything about him.
Sure.
All right. And it was Sam Kinison. And I've heard him do so many different routines. I mean, his routine that he does about Ethiopia and world hunger is a classic, where he's talking about quit sending them food. Don't send them food. Make them move. Go where the food is. And he acts like he's reaching down. He says, "If I'm talking to him," he pick up as he says, "What is sand? It's sand. What's it going to be in 1,000 years? Sand."
Yeah.
You know, go to where the food is. It's hilarious. I mean, it really is very funny. And I've always thought that he was very, very funny, and he was very, very popular. He used to play huge coliseums. I mean, most comedians, if they play a comedy house and they've got a couple hundred guests there,
Yep.
they think they've hit the big time.
500 is the big number.
Yeah.
If you can make it to 500, you've made it.
He played in front of multiple audiences of 20,000 plus. Unbelievable what he did.
There's a really good comedian. His name is Nate Bargatze.
Yeah.
He's a born again Christian guy, clean comedy, but
he fills big stadiums.
Yeah, he does a great job. He's really good.
So Sam went on to become a star, and they started talking about him. He came from a holiness Pentecostal church background.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was a preacher at one time, and he said, this is stuff that I struggle with all the time, that he was preaching about. And so he decided that he was going to get out of the ministry, went into stand-up comedy. 5 years, he lived on about $5,000 a year. He slept a lot of times in back of stores of friends that he knew, sleep on the floor and stuff. And but then made it really, really big. And he had just got his life under control again. He had gotten strung out on drugs and alcohol. I mean, this is a guy that would go on a bender for a week and would not sleep at all. Just drink, do a lot of speed, and he was burning himself to death. He's going to die. And as I look at it, it looks like to me that God got a hold of him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on his way to, he was going to do a comeback because he had gone into treatment and everything. And he passed, a car came up and blew past him and pulled right in front of him. And Kinnison was like, I can't believe he did that. And this guy just took off. And suddenly another car comes in, pulls in front of him, and then veers to the left. And Sam was looking up right into the grill of a pickup truck, come at him, hit him
head on,
and killed him. His new wife, he had married a week before, was in the truck, or in the pickup too. And she survived. Came out of it just scratches. And that just tells me, God he knows when you've met your journey's end.
The scripture says, teach us to number our days, because you don't know how long you have.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people who believe that, in a way, we're kind of born with a set number,
expiration date.
Yeah. And it's set before we're even, conceived. So God, we're born with a certain amount of time to live our life. Now, I don't know if that's entirely true, but there's a belief that, they say make every day count, because you don't know if this is going to be your last one.
And I would agree with that. Let's take a break, and we've got news for you.
Bill O'Reilly here, and I'm warming up. Stand by for the O'Reilly Update Morning Edition. But first, homeowners, when is the last time you checked your home title? Scammers are everywhere, and they're targeting your equity. With just a single forged document, they can file at the county. So don't wait until it's too late. Find out if you are already a victim today. Please go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code BILL to get a free title history report, plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. On this Monday, not many people learn from history, and that's a personal history too. Say you have a hard time with a person, could be a child, could be a spouse, a friend, whatever. there is a tendency to give the benefit of the doubt and to allow those people back into your orbit. Well, let me ask you something. Has that worked out for you? Most of the time you get crushed again because people who are weak, bad, evil have certain tendencies and they don't disappear. Yes, people make mistakes, but I'm talking about patterns of behavior. So now in the world, there is a big danger, and that is terrorism associated with nuclear weapons. Everybody who follows the news, and it's about 50% of the population throughout the world, everybody knows that. Yet, we are not learning from history. And all you have to do is go back to Adolf in the mid-1930s. No one wanted to take the man on. They allowed him to run wild, to conquer the entire continent of Europe from the Arctic Circle all the way down to North Africa. And he was largely unopposed. Have we learned anything from that? Well, watching Iran, I'd have to say the answer is no. Back in a moment. Trapped in a timeshare, fees rising every year while availability shrinks, resorts making exiting nearly impossible. That's why I partner only with Lone Star Transfer. This family-owned company is transparent, honest, respectful. They have helped more than 40,000 owners exit legally and ethically through a simple guaranteed process. No surprise fees, no unused vacations, no stress. Please visit LoneStarTransfer.com or you can call 855-551-7066. Tell them Bill sent you today. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
There's danger out there. It lurks on highways and quiet neighborhood streets. It's more likely to kill you than a shark and more terrifying than the biggest snake. Distracted driving claims lives every day. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while you might think public speaking or the zombie apocalypse is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Retirement can be scary, but only if you're not prepared. That's why AARP created thisispretirement.org. Because unless you've already retired, you're in pretirement, and you still have time to plan. Learn about retirement savings options, potential tax breaks, and how you can build savings over time. Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan and feel the retirement fear disappear. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
We're not adults, so just be there and listen. I just want someone to yap to. And I just feel like I'll be fine if someone just hears me talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
You're doing a really good job. And I don't think I tell you that enough. And I know sometimes we get into it and it's just hard on both of us. But try to understand me more and I'll try to do the same.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
The conservative voice of Arkansas. The Dave Ellswick Show on 101.1. The Answer.
25 minutes until 8 o'clock here on the Dave Ellswick Show. That's an interesting story that we just heard about World War II. Since we were talking about war in Iraq, we can talk about World War II as well. What happened with this guy?
So most of us understand that Japan's part in the war ended with the when we spawned two sons over that particular island. But what most people don't know about the history is that prior to the first bomb dropping, there had been an American pilot who had been shot down. And Japan was notorious for if they captured you, you were dead. They were just going to cut your head off. But they had already heard rumors that the United States was working on an atomic bomb.
So they wanted to debrief him.
Right. So this guy's a pilot. And they're like, well, surely a bomb has got to be delivered by a pilot. So for some reason, obviously, this one lone pilot's going to know about, nuclear bomb we're building. So they bring him in and start questioning him. And he's like, I don't know anything about any bombs, right? And they come to the conclusion that he doesn't know anything. So a senior officer walks in and draws his sword. And he goes, oh, you mean the big bomb that we're building? So, and what he ends up doing is spinning a tale about a bomb, right? And the later stories that are written about that said basically what he said was, oh yeah, it has to do with a bunch of. He said he tried to rely heavily on what little high school chemistry he could remember, and he goes, we've got all these pluses and all these minuses, and we put them in a box and divide it by a sheet of lead, and then when we drop the box out of the plane, we pull the sheet of lead out, and the pluses and minuses combine, and there's a big explosion. And the guys who are on the ground questioning him, they don't have science background, so they just like, oh, we've hit the jackpot for intelligence, right? So they immediately don't execute him, and they begin moving him around, trying to get intelligence from him. And he's just making stuff up constantly. Well, they're moving him towards Tokyo so that he can be interrogated by the actual interrogators. And along the way, the first bomb drops. So now they're really scared because up until this point, they thought America was working on a bomb. They weren't sure. That's the reason they were looking for information. But lo and behold, the first bomb drops. Well, he gets to Tokyo, and they bring in actual scientists so that they can begin to reverse engineer this bomb. And he starts telling his story, and the scientists are standing there going, this guy knows nothing. He doesn't know anything. But the emperor has already bought into the fact that this guy is a source of intelligence, so they can't contradict the emperor, so they just have to play along.
Yeah, because the emperor is divine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
Meanwhile,
theology.
They have asked him, well, where are y'all planning to hit next? And he goes, oh, well, he didn't know the bomb had dropped. He said, I think it's going to be Nagasaki and Hiroshima and Tokyo will probably be second because they'll want to give you a chance with the first one, right? Well, unbeknownst to him, the first bomb has already dropped and hit one of those locations, right? So they get into a tizzy, and sure enough, the second bomb drops, and the Japanese scientists have already kind of concluded, well, if they built a bomb, there's no way they built more than one or two. So they go to question him. He goes, oh, no, we've built thousands of these. Every plane we've got's loaded up with one of these, and we're all coming this way. We could cover the entire nation in these. And it was part of what helped make the decision to surrender. And most people have never heard his story. It's one of those weird details that gets left out because in the greater scheme of things, it seems insignificant, but he helped convince the emperor that it was time to quit.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
You said, and we were talking during the break, and Scott was talking about Billy Graham and General MacArthur.
Yeah. So most people have heard of General Douglas MacArthur, and he was a part of he was in theater in the Orient in Japan, and he was the one in after Japanese surrendered. In fact, you can go online, you can see a picture of Hito and MacArthur standing together. But the one thing we were talking about is that this war that we have going on now in the Middle East is theologically based. Yeah. And if the White House doesn't know the theology behind what's going on, we're never going to get what we want. Because
they are getting what they want because they need the chaos to bring the mighty, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the theology that I'm saying they don't understand.
Right.
And there's a doctrine within Islam called taqiyya, which basically means I can lie to you if it advances my cause. So whatever they say, you can't. Trump says, "I want their signature on that paper." Means nothing.
Yeah.
I wish
absolutely nothing.
I got to tell you, I wish that I had known this years ago about the name of that taqiyya.
Mm-hmm.
I would have taken the old song Tequila and made a great parody song of that.
So the same thing was happening with World War II. It was a theological war when it came to Japan, because we couldn't understand as Americans. We couldn't understand. They're defeated. We've defeated. They're done. Japan is, but they wouldn't stop fighting. And why? Because of theology. They believed that the emperor was divine. It was a cult of the emperor. And so even when we dropped the 2 bombs, they were not going to stop fighting. It took the emperor to actually say stop.
Yeah.
Because they believe in the divinity of the emperor, they couldn't lose. It was just not possible for them to lose. So he said to stop. But when he stopped, he met with when we finally beat Japan and they stopped, they surrendered. MacArthur, he said, he told the world, give me 10,000 missionaries and 1 million Bibles, and I'll give you a Christian Japan. It was the most opportune. It was the biggest opportunity for worldwide evangelism the world ever seen, and the church was not prepared. They were not ready, and the best America did was send a couple of hundred missionaries. I think we wound up with eventually like 2,500 volunteers. I don't think we hit the $1 million Bible mark. It was really, really sad to see how unprepared we were. And I'm thinking to myself, what was the church doing? Were we not training people for 2,000 years ready for a moment like this? Yeah. What were we doing that we couldn't come up with more than a few hundred missionaries?
We were probably
doing the same thing
we're doing now.
Exactly.
Arguing over the color of the carpet.
Absolutely. So then Billy Graham was actually meeting with General MacArthur after the war, obviously, and they were talking, and MacArthur told Billy Graham, he said in a meeting with Hito offered, he says, he said, if you say the word, I will tell my entire country to convert to Christianity. And MacArthur said, well, Christianity, you can't force people to convert, so no. And I thought to myself, and I told my church this on Sunday, I said, if I'd have been there, I'd have said, do it.
Yeah.
Now, I know you can't force people's hearts, but what would have happened is the emperor would have got up and said, I am now a follower of Jesus. And if they still believed that he had that much influence, everybody would have at least listened to the gospel. Yep. They would have gone into church and heard the gospel, and a whole bunch of people would have gotten born again instead of today where we have 1% or less than 1% of Japan that are Christians. We missed the biggest opportunity to change the world in one fell swoop in modern history at that point. That was a huge mistake.
But it could have ended up like it did with Constantine as well.
That's what I started to say. He should probably have had a conversation with Constantine and the Crusaders and to start filling in the blanks from history, because forced conversion is Christianity's history is steeped in forced conversion. So
you think about we understand you have Christianity is of the heart. You can't force someone's heart to change. But what happens is we know that faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. So if all of a sudden the whole nation of Japan was forced by the emperor to sit down and to listen to the gospel, you would have had
hearts will change.
Thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that would have gotten born again. But instead, it just stopped. And sometimes I think our military guys, they're not thinking. Now, obviously, MacArthur thought some theology was involved because he said, give me the missionaries.
Yeah.
But I think also like Moshe Dayan. Moshe Dayan was one of the leading generals of the 6-Day War.
One of my heroes.
We had defeated the Arab world, and he was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and let them at least have control of the Temple Mount.
Right.
He didn't have to do that. Insanity. He could have said, you're all gone, and we will control the Temple Mount because we just defeated you. And he said, it was to be nice, we don't want to do too much. And because of that, what do we have today? A massive problem.
The West Bank and the Temple Mount, which are still a problem.
Like right now, I don't understand the ceasefire that Trump's got going on. If you've got your enemy on the ropes, you don't stop punching them. If you want to understand the theology of the Middle East, you don't stop hitting these people. Because if you stop, what do? They go say, see, our theology works. Look, we've got America on the ropes. They're wanting a ceasefire. They're pulling back. And what do? They keep on doing what they're doing. They're rebuilding.
Yeah.
You can't use normal thought to
and that's built
this.
into the Quran, right? If you lose, all that means is that you need to regroup, and if your enemy will give you the opportunity to regroup, that is the perfect time to go back and get strong again, so that you can punch him in the face again.
Yep.
There is no end to this, and I hate to sound bloodthirsty, but the only way to end this is to cut down all of the leadership. They have to go. That country has to return to what it was 47 years ago. That is the only hope. Otherwise, we will continue. Now, I'm going to be completely transparent and tell you I don't have a lot of hope for it, because it seems to me that when I read about the end times, they're not exactly a Christian nation at that point. Yeah. So,
I've seen some interviews with some of these people that Iranians, and they said, listen, we are not Muslim. We are not Arab. We are Persians.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't want this. And right now, I think we said this the other day, there were 75,000 mosques in Iran. 50,000 are now closed because people are not going, and people are being born again. Jesus is appearing to people in visions and dreams, and there's revival happening in Iran. We are at a moment similar to Japan, not just like it, but we're in a moment where we could see revival break out all throughout the Middle East. I was teaching several weeks ago at my church. I'm looking for the picture here, and I just started showing one image after the next of Iran, of Iraq, of Lebanon, of all these nations, showing images of people, and it looked like you would have been looking at, New York, Florida, California.
Yeah, they were westernized.
And so I said to my people, this is in the 60s and 70s, I said, what were you guys doing? This is before my time.
Yeah.
So I said to the older congregation, I said, what were you doing? We were watching one nation after the next fall to Islam. What were you guys doing? Why? I said, were the pulpits roaring with what's happening in the world? Or were we just playing around, like you said, like arguing over colors of carpet? What was the church doing at that time? Because some of these images, you would not know if you're looking at a black and white picture of Florida, or if you're looking at Cairo.
Yeah, part of the problem there is that we were that generation was still recovering from World War II and Vietnam and et cetera.
They didn't want another war.
Yeah, the last thing they wanted to do was a military intervention in the Middle East. We didn't have the reach. The ease of reach that we have today. Today it's like we want to attack in Iran, we fly bombers out of Alabama. It's rather than putting people on ships for weeks and weeks and weeks and going over there and getting involved. So we were a little touchy in the 60s, just because we'd been beat on so much by then. So 60s and 70s. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Girls in bikinis at the beach.
Yeah. Just sitting around studying.
Now that's for those of you who wonder what Pastor Scott's looking at, those are 1960s and 1970s bikinis, which are far more modest than what most people are wearing around town.
Midriff and my arms.
Yeah.
But my point is, when you look at all these countries that used to look like us, and now you look at them right now, you're thinking, how in the world did this happen? How did this happen?
Yeah.
And on whose watch did this happen? And what were the pulpits saying during this time? The whole theology of Israel wasn't on people's radars. As a matter of fact, the theology back in the day when Israel was not reconstituted, the theology of the day was Israel's done. There was nothing to even talk about.
All right.
And then when Jerusalem came back into the hands of the Jews for the first time in 1967, that was in May. In the fall of that year, there was a major prophecy conference that happened on an annual basis, and it met in the fall of that year of 67, and there was not one talk or one sermon on the significance of Israel or the city of Jerusalem, and it had just come back into the hands of the Jews for the first time since Jesus' prophecy in 2,000 years. It just wasn't on our radar, and we have to realize this is a holy war that we're a part of right now.
Yeah,
and
I think that comes from. It's going to sound harsh, but I think that comes from a lack of faith. So much of the end times prophecy involves Israel and Jerusalem, and yet Israel didn't live in Israel anymore. So we had to come up with in man's typical fashion, rather than going, well, God's going to have to do something. We went, well, we must have misunderstood this, and that's not Israel, that's spiritual Israel. And we start forming a theology around the fact that there is no Israel. And once that becomes set in our minds for, say 1,800 years, we can't turn on a dime like that. Man just doesn't do that. And of course, that's not what the seminaries were teaching at that point. They had an end times point of view that did not necessarily involve an Israel whatsoever. So it seemed pretty insignificant. But then again, so did the birth of one little boy in Israel seem pretty insignificant at the time, and would stay that way for about 30 years. And then the whole world would turn upside down. And I hope that's what we're seeing right now. I hope we're seeing that, hey, you know what? The whole world's turning upside down because things are kicking off right now. If you don't believe we're living in the end times, you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
All right, got to take a break. We'll be back. We will finish up our hour with the Bible guys on the Dave Ellswick Show.
The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
I've suffered from shoulder pain for about 22 years. It got to where I couldn't even wash my hair. I couldn't even brush my teeth without pain.
That's when Sophia checked out QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. All natural treatments to revitalize your damaged joint tissue and get you back to living a normal life again with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime.
I chose QC Kinetics because my son, he had his back done, and he had great success with it.
Join tens of thousands of satisfied patients who have found lasting relief from their joint pain. Request a free consultation and find out if you're qualified for this therapeutic breakthrough. Call 501-808-2602.
I was in the shower washing my hair, and I realized, oh my God, I'm washing my hair and it doesn't hurt. I'm pain-free, and I want to thank you, QC Kinetics.
Isn't it time you got your life back? Call now for your free consultation. 501-808-2602. 501-808-2602.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus with a message of perseverance, faith, and a shared global destiny.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before since the book of Acts.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? What does the Bible say?
We have to become fighters in the spirit for God. We don't accept what the enemy wants to do with our culture. We don't accept what he wants to do with the nation. If we keep fighting, we win.
Powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie based on Jonathan Cahn's international bestseller. The Dragon's Prophecy combines history and scripture with faith, justice, and renewal. The Dragon's Prophecy, a new film by Dinesh D'Souza. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes. The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. The Dave Ellswick Show continues now. 101.1, The Answer.
We're back with you. Final segment with the Bible guy. Scott's here from Agape Church. He's the senior preacher there. And then so is Billy Miller. And Billy Miller is sitting in the studio. And he, along with Steve Hess, works with the Hebraic Christian community at, of course, Agape Church. On Thursdays, Scott and Billy have both been saying the same things that Enrico Rivera says about what's going on over in the Middle East, in that we're thinking in a Western train of thought and we're fighting in an Eastern train of thought.
Yeah.
And it's totally different.
Totally.
Completely different. And it's been interesting listening to Enrico talk about it, and saying if you look, what Israel has done with a lot of the Arabs is they treated them well. They've let them, sell and trade and whatnot. He said there's a lot of Arabs in Israel, about maybe a third of the nation, and they get along fine with them.
Yeah.
But the ones that are the Islamic terrorists that believe that getting rid of the Jews will herald in their, quote, savior are the problem.
Mm-hmm. That's why Iran is now shooting missiles at Saudi Arabia and the EAU or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Why are they firing on their own people? It's a part of theology.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that, then you're going to say, well, I have no idea why they're doing this. Well, we know why they're doing this. You watch these talking heads on the news, you're like, you guys are just spitting in the wind. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it's the part of what we don't understand is that you can't just beat them with military might. and because that doesn't work in their culture. You have to, and this is going to sound terrible to a Western mind, but you have to humiliate them. It's the reason that at one point, it was either us or Russia, I don't remember who, started threatening to dip all of our bullets in hog's blood, right? Like, I'm not only going to kill you, but I'm going to make sure you can't go to heaven, right? And that ended whatever that particular conflict was. One of those things I just read at one point. But
the Philippines.
You have to.
That was Blackjack Pershing, by the way.
That was.
Well, there you go. You can't just win a physical battle. You have to win a moral battle with them. You have to win a psychological. You have to win a psychological battle against them. And the way we're doing battle right now, they'll just, even if they retreat and surrender, it'll be a problem again in 5 years. So their culture will outlive a presidency. So they know all we got to do is back off for 3 years, then we'll deal with the next guy. So,
and even if they put in even if the son's the Shah's son, the crown prince, if he goes in there, once there's no longer a strong American government, then they will create a coup. And but have you noticed how that talking about holy war? Have you noticed how many politicians now are now, and these I'm talking about left-wing lunatic politicians who are now invoking Jesus and trying to quote scripture. And
the funniest thing is when they mess it up badly.
There's this guy in Texas, Tellerico, that's running.
Yeah.
And he is, I saw him, he was teaching from a pulpit, and he said that God is transgender. He was saying how that Jesus was pro-abortion. This lunatic woman who won in New Jersey over this past week, she was saying that Jesus, according to what she sees in Scripture, Jesus was a Democrat socialist. I mean, I wonder where the voices are that are actually pushing back against some of that stuff. I try to do it, but I mean,
most preachers today say, I don't want to get involved in politics. I just want to preach the gospel. But if you're going to preach the gospel, you're going to get politically involved.
Yeah. and part of the problem with that mentality is they have forgotten that killing babies is theological. Right. It is Bible.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Gender is a Bible thing. God made the male and female, end of story. He even says men and women should not wear each other's clothes. I mean, he was very clear on the distinction between the sexes. When it comes to the divinity of Jesus and who Jesus was, when it comes to Israel, Israel's a biblical issue. It's not a political issue. It's a biblical issue that's been politicized. If pastors don't know that, they need to read their Bible. I mean, the Pope is out there saying God doesn't hear the prayer of people who fight wars. Well, did he listen to David?
All right.
Did he listen to Joshua? Joshua made the sun stand still.
Hey, you know who the greatest warrior in history is ever going to be? It's going to be that guy that comes back on that white horse.
There you go. With the vest dripped in blood.
Right.
And a sword coming out of his mouth.
And by the way, if you think Jesus didn't get involved in politics, realize that every time he's yelling at a leader, those are all political leaders as well as spiritual leaders.
All right. We're done for time today on the Dave Ellswick Show for the Bible Guys. Next week, let's look at the theology of Islam, because there's a lot of people who believe that they worship the same Christian God that we worship, and my friend, that's terribly wrong way from what Christianity is. All right. Got to get our break in. News is next, and then the power panel here on the Dave Ellswick Show. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave, awesome.
Freedom has a frequency, and it's 101.1. The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. KDXE, Kamak Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. Amit Thomason. Iran threatens a stern response after the U.S. military seized a cargo ship accused of trying to skirt the American blockade of Iranian ports.
The U.S. Navy's forcible seizure of an Iranian-flagged cargo ship has thrown into doubt an announcement from President Donald Trump that U.S. negotiators will head to Pakistan on Monday for another round of talks with Iran. Trump's announcement on Sunday had raised hopes of extending a fragile ceasefire, while Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson adds Tehran does not have plans yet to attend any talks with the U.S. Trump had said the cargo ship had been stopped by blowing a hole in the engine room and that U.S. Marines had custody of the vessel named Tuska and were seeing what's on board. Iran's Joint Military Command says Tehran will respond soon. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
They were just kids, the oldest 14. 8 youngsters shot and killed by a gunman in Shreveport, Louisiana. Police say the shooter was the father of 7 of the children.
Right now, we have at least 10 individuals that were struck by gunfire last night in a domestic disturbance. 8 of these individuals are deceased. The ranges of the decedents are from 1 year of age to approximately 14 years of age. All of the deceased in this case are juveniles.
Shreveport police spokesman Christopher Bordelin says a gunman who was also shot and injured 2 women was shot dead by police following a vehicle chase. Small tsunami has been reported along the northern Japan coast following a powerful earthquake overnight. So far, though, no reports of any injuries or any serious damage. On Wall Street, ahead of this morning's opening bell, stock futures are lower. The Dow futures are down about 217 points. NASDAQ futures off 95. The S&P futures 28 points in the red. Townhall.com.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So, yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you got to call Big Lou because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds, too. Get a quote right now at 800-555-2085. 800-555-2085 or biglou.com.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at jurekdds.com. Ford is recalling nearly 1.4 million F-150 trucks in the U.S. over a transmission defect that could cause sudden downshifting and increased crash risk. Regulators say the issue may stem from a faulty sensor, and Ford will fix it with a free software update after reports of crashes and injuries. The Arkansas Supreme Court has reversed a lower court ruling in the 2025 fatal shooting of Catholic high school student John Allen Statz, sending the case back to be tried in adult court. The victim's family called the decision a major step toward justice and thanked state officials involved in the appeal. Hot Springs National Park is celebrating America's upcoming 250th birthday alongside its own 194th anniversary with a community event on the Arlington lawn featuring about 20 organizations highlighting Arkansas's conservation and cultural history. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm John Thayer on 101.1 The Answer. In college baseball action this weekend, Arkansas dropped 2 of 3 on the road at Georgia. Bulldogs won the series on Saturday with a 26-14 victory. The two teams combined for 35 hits in the ballgame. Razorbacks are 9-9 in the SEC. Central Arkansas completed the sweep of Eastern Kentucky yesterday with a 9-6 victory. Bears are 22-18 overall, 10-8 in the ASUN. Little Rock dominated Eastern Illinois yesterday, 11-1 to sweep the weekend series. Trojans are 11-4 in the OVC. Arkansas State won the series yesterday at UL Monroe with a 4-1 victory over the Warhawks. Red Wolves are 9-9 in Sunbelt play. Northside Power, your trusted name when the power goes out. Generators isn't something they do, it's all they do. Find out more at northsidepower.com. I'm John Thayer with your Sports Flash on 101.1 The Answer.
Up in Your Business with Carrie McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com.
Through storytelling, conversational interviews, and Carrie's natural curiosity, this weekly radio show and podcast offers listeners an insider's view into the commonalities of entrepreneurs, athletes, medical professionals, politicians, and other successful people, all sharing their stories of success and the ups and downs of risk-taking.
Up in Your Business with Carrie McCoy, Saturdays at 2 and Sundays at 10. On 101.1 The Answer.
All right, Paul is in the studio. Power panel is convened. Typically, we would have Wayne Beach in, but he's got a doctor's appointment today, so he will not be joining us. At 10 o'clock today, you'll want to be listening. We're going to have state representative Marcus Richmond on about
state representative.
No Sharia law in Arkansas. That is now being put out there. I don't know if they'll talk about it and decide on it during the fiscal session. I doubt it. But they're going to have a special election after the fiscal session and deal with things that they can deal with during that. And maybe they figure they can bring forward that law.
That's interesting. I didn't realize there was planning to have another special session. But they, so Sarah and I went to the Capitol. What day was that? It was Wednesday.
Okay.
And they had a hearing on some extra bills that weren't fiscal bills.
Was this one of them?
This was one of them.
Okay.
And so he presented it. They killed it. The committee killed it. But one bill did get through. It was the bill to increase the homestead tax credit.
But what was their reasoning for killing the bill?
I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning for killing the bill was. Part of it is that you got legislators that don't really want to open the floodgates to non-fiscal legislation. And they're going to do some, but I think so. They did the one about.
But you can do homestead
tax credits, but it's.
I mean, that's fiscal. I get it, but
it is kind of fiscal, but it's not really.
So then why can't they lower the income tax in this one? Why do they got to call a special session for that if this is fiscal?
Well,
because it's new fiscal business.
I don't know. They're not going to lower the income tax.
They are, but
they're
going to do they're going to do it in special.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
They're going to have a special session.
Yeah,
so they can,
whole 0.2%.
Well, but still, I'm all for lowering the.
I mean, if you're going to lower it to like 5 point, not 3.9 to 3.7, that's like $100 in people's pockets over the year.
It's something, but I don't understand why they wouldn't want to just go ahead and do it during this fiscal session,
right?
And not.
I think again, I go back. I think it has to do with it's not something that was dealt with during the general session fiscally, so it makes it very difficult to get it forward.
Yeah, it does make it.
But how are you going to do that if you don't know how much you're going to have to spend? You know what I mean? Like if they're going to be decreasing their budget amount of what they're bringing in, then how are they going to know? Like it's kind of backwards.
Well, actually, that might actually be a relevant point because after the fiscal session is over, then they'll have a better idea of what's going to be left to cut. So maybe that's why.
We'll get Mark Johnson on sometime this week. I'll get him set up because he's kind of our spokesman for the special the fiscal session, and he can answer that question.
Well, he's one of those guys that kind of pays attention to details.
Oh, yeah, he does. He has a lot of that.
He's the local historian,
and he's on. I think he's on the House committee that deals with fiscal things. So
I think they have a
joint.
I think they have a joint committee that deals with it. I'm trying to remember.
They both meet together.
Yeah, they did. That's what we went to on Wednesday. I think it was. I think it was a joint committee with the House and the Senate. I'm trying to remember who the people were that were there.
Though we are a lot like Washington in what we do, as far as dealing with issues and voting on them in the House and the Senate, that's one thing that we aren't like them, and that they have a Senate Finance Committee and a House Finance Committee, and then they, because it is start in the House, that's where all laws must start, and so they'll pass something, and then it goes over to the Senate, and the Senate figures out what they agree and what they disagree with, make changes, amendments. Then it's sent back to be worked over by the House and the Senate.
So on the federal level, I think all tax bills have to originate in the House?
Yes.
Okay, but then general stuff can originate in the Senate or the House. But I think tax bills specifically has to originate in the House. If I understand it correctly.
The purse.
It's got to start in the House, because by the Constitution,
and I think
the House is where it's supposed to start at. So at least they follow one small bit.
It is kind of funny.
The Constitution.
It is kind of funny that they actually care about that provision of the Constitution.
Yeah.
I mean, Arkansas requires there to be a separate vote for the bill and the emergency clause, but they vote on them together. It's very clear in the Constitution. Somebody took them to court over it, and the courts said, "Well, this really isn't our job to deal with this issue." So they punted on it, kind of.
Well, they said it was not a judicial issue, but it was a legislative issue.
But the thing is, the legislature is breaking the law, breaking the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. They're just not following it.
All right. So that's all going on. That's a long way getting around for us to say again that Arkansas State Representative Marcus Richmond will be with us at 10 o'clock to talk about this Sharia law that was not passed out of committee.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the consent. I think that's going to be the final word this fiscal session. But if they're going to have a special session, they might be able to bring it up there. And
2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate must agree that they'll talk about it.
Yeah, during the fiscal session. I don't know how that works during the special session.
I guess it's basically the same way,
because it'll be called for a specific reason.
When the governor calls, she'll be calling it, and we're going to do this. Now, if you want to get on to the list of bills, then you got to get 2/3 of the vote of the House and the Senate just to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the special session that's called by the governor will have an agenda,
mm-hmm.
and if your bill kind of falls within that agenda, I think you can file it. But if it doesn't, you'll have to get the 2/3 majority, I guess, to even get into.
So anyway, that's where we're at right now.
Cool.
I'll get a hold of Mark Johnson, State Senator Mark Johnson, and set him up for this week. And we'll see if we can't get him in here on Friday again to talk to us, because he's going to be our point guy about the fiscal session. And I would think the fiscal session will end probably on Thursday of this week. Now, they won't vote on making sure it is done on Thursday. You got to, was it sign a die? To get that, you have to have a vote by the Senate and House. They both have to agree that, yeah, we're done. We're not gonna talk about this stuff anymore. And then we'll find out about the special session. So all of that is coming, and we'll be watching it during this week about that. All right, so Paul, I know your analogy of knocking down the hornet's nest and then kicking it around and getting the hornets all ticked off at you and they start stinging you, probably is something that you hold close and dear to your heart. Do you think that that's what the president has done over in Iran?
I don't know. I mean, so far it looks like it's wrapping up a lot faster than previous endeavors by various other presidents over the last 20 to 30 years. They kick the hornet's nest, and they keep it stirred up for 20 years. Of course, we've only been in this, a month or so now.
A little over 5 weeks. We got 6 weeks.
And it looks like it's petering out, which seemed like a really good thing. If that's what happens, if it simmers down and things get back to a baseline, if you will, that seems like a dramatic improvement over what has happened in the last 20 or 30 years, kind of my lifetime when I've been kind of paying attention, that we've had presidents go to the Middle East, they kick the hornet's nest, throw rocks at a hornet's nest, whatever analogy you want to use, keep them stirred up, and then we just get blowback for the next 15 or 20 years, which is not very productive, and we don't actually fix the problems. So I don't know, but it kind of seems like things are leveling out over there, and I think we're seeing oil prices coming back down and things kind of stabilizing some. So that seems like good news.
Well, one thing that we have found out, and I'm sure that the president had a pretty good grip on this, is that the Iraqi military is playing a huge part in what the country is doing. It's not the mullahs aren't in control anymore.
Okay,
it's the army, the Iranian Republican Guard.
Okay,
that's doing all the decisions. That's why you've got president saying that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open again, and then the military of Iran comes out and says, no, it's not. We're going to keep it closed, and unless you stop the blockade and all the rest. So right now, nobody really knows per se what's going on or who's making the decision to decide what is going to go on in Iran.
Well, and so, I'm not very familiar at all with how their culture, society is set up over there in Iran, but it's about 90 million people, so it's not small. I assume they maybe have something like states or provinces over there. I don't know, but here in America, we have 48 states within the continental United States, not including Alaska, which is kind of on the continent, but it's a really long ways away. But we have 48 states that are all together touching each other. Hawaii is a long ways off. But if somebody was to start attacking America pretty aggressively, and they took out leader after leader after leader as they're keep popping their heads up, if it's sort of like what we're seeing in Iran, then so they take the president out and the vice president, and then the next whole bunch of people on down the line, after 10 or 15 times of doing that, I don't know who would be in charge. I don't know who would be the point man after that point. And so it could just be almost anybody popping their head up. It could be governors popping their heads up, say, well, I'm in charge now, and they get shot, and somebody else. And then after that happens for several weeks, then I couldn't tell you who it would be in America. And so I sure can't tell you who it's going to be over there.
But it's already laid out. I mean, we know
the chain of command.
The chain of command. If everybody, there's a lone survivor always. When like a State of the Union or whatever is given, where one person is in a very secluded and protected area.
But if that happens 15 or 20 times, then is there a plan for? Is at some point it's a congressman somewhere that's the congressman with most seniority or whatever?
If it gets to that part, we won't have to worry. We won't have a country.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at. Is that it seems like that's happening.
That's what's happening in Iran, and we're going to have to probably wrestle control of Iran from the military. I foresee that being
and I think
something going down in the future.
I think that sort of thing would probably happen here in America too. Is you've still got military, even if the leaders are taken out here in America, you still got military personnel. There may be sort of run around like chickens with their heads cut off, but they've got this hardware that they can do something with. But they may
however, they don't have. They probably would not know, as they don't in Iran, who's going to call the shots.
Right, and I think that's where I think it would just be kind of chaos if the leaders were taken out.
Well, that's what we're seeing in Iran right now. And I mean, the military is not helping the country in Iran in any way, shape, or form by saying, well, we didn't agree to this Strait of Hormuz thing. We're going to shut it down. Well, it's going to be just like President Trump said, hey, thanks for the help. We already shut it down. And if you're going to keep it shut down, then, thanks for joining our side on it.
So, I guess it'll be interesting to see where it's going. Is the military still kind of run by the radical Muslims, or what are we looking at?
Well, I don't know. I bet you the mullahs didn't know who would be running the country if everybody else was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the military side of the political machine in Iran said, okay, we're calling the shots now. Who's to say that they're not?
I don't know. And it's like here in America, if something like that was to happen, I couldn't tell you what the decision-making would look like.
I mean, when they try to come up with a leader, nobody wants to say they're the leader because they're afraid they're going to end up with a sidewinder up the Reno Canal.
Yeah, they're just going to go meet their 72 virgins, or whatever it is.
I think that may happen. All right, we're going to talk about this some more here on the Dave Ellswick Show. It's 21 minutes after 8 on a Monday, and things have kind of calmed down now. The chaos that we had earlier in the show now has come under control. And I'm liking being here on the show now. It was crazy when we went on. I won't get into it, but go back and listen to the first hour and you'll understand why it was so crazy. Okay, let's get our break in and then we'll be back with more.
America is at a tipping point. To ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave, you need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The practice of manufacturing collisions between the Vatican and the President of the United States has continued with Pope Leo XIV because he is new in the job. And President Donald Trump, of course, always provides copy. Take an unknown, mix in the very well-known, and 1,000 columns are launched. The best commentary on this situation actually came from Vice President J.D. Vance more than a year ago. Quote, it's very hard to fit a 2,000-year-old institution into the politics of 2025, Vice President Vance told me in March of last year. He added, I try not to do that. Reporters ought to be taking heed of that as they cover the Pope and the President. Tell us what the principal said or posted if done specifically with the other party name. Don't overlay prior points of view. That's as silly as playing mind reader. A suggestion. Whenever you hear or read a reporter asserting what a public figure thinks or feels, change your feed or at least turn on your misinformation shield.
You have a child or grandchild about to turn 26? Hi, it's Doc Washburn. My friend Tammy Chase is a local insurance professional who meets with you in person. She takes the time to listen and understand your needs. Tammy will explain all the options available in plain language that's easy to understand. She loves to help people, and she's an expert you can trust. Call my friend Tammy Chase for expert help in making it easy. Tell her Doc sent you. TammyChaseInsurance.com.
Scott Jennings doesn't see the president bending.
There is no way that they're going to get, they still want it. And they made that clear the other night. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon.
This is his red line, his most important goal, to stop the avowed enemy of the United States, run by religious fanatics who chant death to America, from acquiring nuclear weapons.
The Scott Jennings Show, weekdays at noon, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Weather.
If this forecast holds, we are in for a beautiful start to the work week. High of 81 today under sunshine, 60 for the low tonight, a few clouds and sun tomorrow, and a high all the way up to 85.
You can watch the show right now. The Dave Ellswick Show is streaming live on Facebook. This is 101.1 The Answer.
8:25 on a Monday. Dave Ellswick with you. Paul is here. Paul Calvert. He is our power panel today. It's a one-man panel today.
An army of one.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, let me remind you that we'll have State Representative Marcus Richmond on, and he'll be talking about his new piece of legislation that was defeated in committee last week dealing with Sharia law. And it's a very interesting piece of legislation.
Well, and it's an interesting thing to think about. And I don't know exactly where he was going with it. I got to listen to some of the testimony that he gave, explaining what his bill was going to do. But it's, I guess they're trying to kind of nip something in the bud before it becomes a problem. I guess there's kind of an enclave of sorts here in the Little Rock area of Muslims where they're trying to set up I guess almost like a homeowners association or something. Maybe they bought some property, like a
kind of an HOA.
Something
trying to do, and they're.
It's already set up. It's been set up for like 10 years.
Yeah, I was just going to explain that to Paul because I remember when it was being thought of the first time.
Right, and so it's an interesting concept. I don't know what exactly he's trying to do with it, but so let's.
Well, that's why we're having him on
right
at 10 o'clock, so he can explain all of that.
Just the idea, like, so what if Baptists want to
be considered a cult,
form a homeowners association, and so we only want Baptists here because we want a certain society where the people will be similar in beliefs. Should we make that illegal? I mean,
and I think that's where this piece of legislation has problems.
Yeah, and so
in front of people,
and so it's one thing for Baptists to say, we're going to have a homeowners association, and in order to live here, you have to sign on to the statement of faith, and maybe we're going to make some special rules. You got to wear shorts down to your knees all the time, and you can't wear bathing suits, and you can't drink alcohol or something of that nature. And so they can make all these weird, crazy rules if they want to. And women always have to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. But I'm just keep teasing. But the thing is, though, should we allow homeowner associations to make what most of us would consider kind of dumb rules?
Well, here's the key. Where does it cut on the Constitution and freedom of religion?
Well, that's the thing, is that is there a special freedom of religion? Just like the local Baptist church doesn't have to hire an atheist to be a pastor just because the atheist is qualified, more or less, whatever that means. I mean, they don't have to hire someone they disagree with. I mean, and so the thing is, freedom of religion, I don't think should be restricting private activity. I think, if anything, it's only restricting government activity. So, I mean, I don't know. I think generally freedom of association should be very much protected, and a homeowners association kind of seems like a freedom of association type issue, although I'm happy to hear what
we'll find out what the state representative has to say about it. That's questions for him, and I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Right? No, I don't either.
We'll let him explain it to us. We've got just about a minute before we get to news. You may have heard about this, but a ship had ignored our warnings and was subsequently disabled via a shot through the engine room. And that was announced by CENTCOM. They also said American forces issued multiple warnings, and I've heard some sound on that, and it was telling them that we're going to fire imminently on your ship, move everybody out of the engine room.
Mm-hmm.
They told them, get them out of there because we're going to blow your engine up, and that's where it's going to stand. So it happened. So we'll talk a little bit about that and a whole lot more when we get back after the news that's coming up here in just a moment. So that is coming up. And again, big last hour today dealing with the Supreme Court. We'll talk about it in a moment.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. Pakistan preparing to host another round of U.S.-Iran talks this week, but there are questions about whether those talks will actually take place, especially given the American seizure of an Iranian cargo ship that the U.S. says was a blockade runner. There have been a series of arson attacks on Jewish sites around London. British police say they're investigating whether it's the work of Iranian proxies. Meanwhile, 2 teens have been arrested in connection with one of those attacks, an attack on a synagogue in North London. Shreveport, Louisiana, the scene of the nation's deadliest shooting in more than 2 years. A man killed 8 children, including 7 of his own. He shot and wounded 2 women as well before he was shot dead by police. The U.S. military says it has launched another strike on a boat used of drug running in the Caribbean Sea. The attack killed 3 people. More details, srnnews.com.
If you're hearing my voice, chances are you're either worried about a parent living alone or you are that parent. And you know your family worries about you too. Either way, there's a company that finally got senior safety right. Connected Caregiver. Connected Caregiver is everything you knew about alert devices, fall detection, emergency button, GPS, reimagined for today. There's a small wearable that alerts your family's phone the moment something happens. Inside your home, discrete sensors, no cameras, no microphones, just motion sensors have you covered even when you're not wearing it. No movement for hours, your loved ones will know. For the kids, you go from hoping everything's okay to knowing it is. And for you, you stay in your home on your terms while giving your precious family the peace of mind they've been asking for. That's not losing independence, that's keeping it. Visit ccgoffer.com to see if you qualify for a free device. It takes 2 minutes. That's ccgoffer.com, ccgoffer.com. Do it today.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
On Salem News Channel, principled voices are shaping today's conversation. Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates. Josh Hammer's blistering commentary puts politics and culture on trial. And Alex Marlowe's insight connects us to what matters most. Watch anytime on Samsung TV Plus, Pluto TV, or find us on your screen at snc.tv. 3 new shows, 1 powerful lineup. Salem News Channel, across America. What if you could take 101.1 The Answer with you everywhere? You can. Download the 101.1 The Answer app and stay connected to the voices you trust, live and on demand. Wake up with Dave Ellswick. Stay sharp with Doc Washburn. And hear from national voices like Chris Stegall, Scott Jennings, Hugh Hewitt, Larry Elder, and Mike Gallagher. Breaking news, bold opinions, local insight, national perspective, all in one place, all in your pocket, at work, in the car, on the go. If it matters to Arkansas and America, you'll hear it on 101.1 The Answer. Plus, stream us live anywhere. Catch up on podcasts and never miss a moment. Search 101.1 The Answer in your app store and download it today. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Dave Ellswick is the conservative voice of Arkansas, and he's back. 101.1 The Answer.
Continuing on the Dave Ellswick Show, and again, don't forget at 10 o'clock that we're having state representative
Marcus
coming
Richmond.
in. Yeah, Marcus from Richmond will be here. We'll talk to him about Sharia law and his piece of legislature trying to ban it here in the state.
Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting issue. You mentioned something about the Supreme Court came down with a ruling, or they were hearing something, or what were you?
They did. I don't know if they ruled on anything. Let me see if I got that in my list of stuff here on my phone. I get to it here. I know that the Supreme Court, of course, has ruled against the president about tariffs. So companies that feel they lost money about
are entitled to seek
compensation. You get compensation
from the tariffs.
The Supreme Court unanimously made a decision that will make it more difficult to take businesses to court that had contacts contracts, with the federal government. According to the SCOTUS blog, the Supreme Court Friday sent a lawsuit seeking to hold oil and gas companies liable for damage to the Louisiana coast back to the federal courts and said, try again, dudes. Wall Street Journal reporting the plaintiff bar took a big loss at the Supreme Court on Friday, which means a win for the economy and rule of law. In a unanimous decision, justices made it harder to raid businesses by holding that federal contractors can't be hauled into state courts for claims relating to their government work. So they said, yeah, you can. And then a story that's out that I thought was interesting. We can talk about it now, I guess. The conservative justices, of course, overthrew Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm. The ones who could read.
The Federalist reports that when the draft of the Supreme Court ruling that would overturn Roe v. Wade leaked to the press, the conservative justices who signed on to the majority opinion suddenly wore bigger targets on their backs. The very real threat of assassination hung over them like a coming thunderstorm. And still, the pro-abortion colleagues stalled the release of the official ruling for weeks, putting the justices' lives at increased risk. As detailed in Molly Hemingway's new book on Justice Samuel Alito and reported on Saturday by Fox News, Kagan, an Obama nominee, made her opinion on the delay loudly clear, according to Hemingway's book. As reported by Fox, Hemingway wrote that Kagan, an Obama appointee, angrily confronted Breyer, a Clinton appointee, in May of 2022 behind closed doors after at least one justice, Samuel Alito, had asked his liberal colleagues to speed up writing their dissent because of security threats. Fox reported that Breyer was most likely to agree to Alito's request. Hemingway wrote in her book that Kagan remonstrated with Breyer or met with the other justice, and they argued about this with Breyer not to accommodate the majority, screaming so loudly in the office, observers noted that the walls were shaking. While pro-abortion zealots were calling for heads to roll, the court's liberal minority did nothing to, as the left likes to say, with empty virtue, turn down the temperature. So that's...
Well, should we be too surprised, though, that we've got people who want to kill children who might try to assassinate judges? I mean, what's the difference? I mean, is there? I mean, they think there's a little bit of difference in their minds, but we're still killing. They're still talking about killing people, and so we've got a crowd of people, a big chunk of people in America who really ravenously want to be able to kill children.
Some who showed up, like at who was it? Who was the justices? They showed up at his house. The guy showed up at his house with a loaded pistol and everything.
Was Kavanaugh?
Yeah, I think it was Kavanaugh. To kill him, and somebody got wind of it, turned that information to the FBI, and they showed up when the guy showed up and took him into custody. But that's why they're saying we were waiting for this opinion to come out about why. And how and what, this was going to do. By sending it back to the states had the right to decide how they were going to handle abortion, which we always thought it was a state's issue anyway.
It is. And just like murder is a state's issue. I mean, it's a big deal, but you don't want the federal government prosecuting people for murder when it's within the state's borders. I mean, it's not something that the federal government should be handling. If you're accused of murder, I don't think you should have to be facing federal charges where you have to travel long distances and whatever else. So we do want that to be at the state level, and we want the state to deal with it. And now some states are going to say that, well, yeah, you can kill your kids, so long as they haven't been born yet.
Then some say you can't even that.
And some of them are some of the hardcore Democrat crazy people actually file legislation every once in a while, from what I understand, that would allow children to die after they've been born, and which in reality they're just being more consistent than the others, I guess. And so they're pretty messed up people. But we don't want the federal government to have jurisdiction over everything, even though it is an appropriate thing for government to have jurisdiction over. And killing children is an appropriate thing for government to intervene on. But there is a jurisdictional issue that's appropriate, because we don't want the federal government to deal with everything. We just, even though there's certain things that it's
why there's a 10th Amendment.
Yeah. The 10th Amendment is there to limit the jurisdiction of the federal government, and it should be something that keeps them from doing most of what they do. I would say that probably 80 or 90% of what the federal government does straight up violates the 10th Amendment, because it's just simply prohibited for them.
Which, if they're doing that, there's a constitutional argument that can be made that a state can pull out of the union because of that.
I think that's a reasonable argument to be made. You've got peaceful states that say, look, we don't want the federal government violating us with all these things that they're doing and stealing from our people to fund them, and maybe even endangering our people to fund these or to engage in these practices. And so I think there's a reasonable argument. That's a peaceful solution. It's like California. They don't like some of this. They don't like a lot of stuff that's going on. I'd say let them leave peacefully. Let them leave. Do the same thing with New York and Massachusetts. Let these states leave and become their own countries, and they can rise or fall, whatever may be. But if they're going to be so depraved and messed up, why should we provide them with national security? I mean, let them. If they want to accept a bunch of Muslim terrorists into their country, let them do it. Let the Muslims immigrate to those places and overrun their countries and see if they like it.
Well, the problem with that is that how do you make sure that the people that are causing the influx, let's say in New York State, how do you keep them in New York State and not into the other states that are around them?
It may be that we need to build some walls to keep, because right now I don't want people from San Francisco moving to Arkansas. To me, I'm more afraid of people from San Francisco, at least many of them. There's a few that aren't too crazy, but there's a lot of them that are. They burn up they destroy their cities there, and then they come to Arkansas and say, oh, the cost of living is low here and the people don't cut our throats. Let's move to Arkansas and we'll vote for crazy legislation here. So I'm more afraid of people from the crazies from San Francisco than I am from people from south of the border. I mean, a lot of those people are relatively peaceful Catholics who just want to work. The people from San Francisco, they're nut jobs, and they want to destroy our country, our state, by turning it into a cesspool like San Francisco. I'm afraid, and so those people are I think a pretty significant risk to the state of Arkansas.
So you don't think them people coming over here illegally and working and taking cash money back across the border, you don't find that a problem?
I don't think it's near as big a problem as the people coming from San Francisco.
But why would they move here from San Francisco if they were conservative? Then that's okay.
Well, and that's the thing. There are some people coming from San Francisco or from California that aren't so crazy, but some of the people coming from there are crazy, and I don't want them here voting.
But why would they move here?
Because it's cheaper,
places.
Low crime.
It's not, though. Have you looked at the price of? Have you looked at I can get a beach house for the price of rent here. Like I literally pay less for my beach house than I pay for rent here in Little Rock, and there ain't no beach
in San Francisco.
In Florida. What I'm saying is it's not cheaper.
They could move to Florida perhaps, but Arkansas is a destination place for low crime and much lower cost of living than
not Little Rock, I guess.
What's that?
Not Little Rock, I guess.
Maybe not Little Rock. I don't know, but I mean, I am a real estate investor. I do know a little bit about real estate.
Yeah, and so you realize that it's doubled in like the last 5 years. It's not cheap anymore.
As a landlord, I'm kind of liking that, but But
the cost of living, though, is not like people are saying cheap. It's not.
Well, it's still cheap compared to some of these other places. I mean, so in in Faulkner County right now, you can probably get a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment or house for around $1,100 a month, and it'd be kind of okay.
$1,500, $1,600.
Well, for $1,500 or $1,600, you can get a kind of nicer 3 or 4-bedroom house.
Yeah, that's not cheap.
No, it's not super cheap. But if you were
I can get that on the beach in Florida.
But if you were to get that in a lot of places in California or Massachusetts or New York, you're probably looking at $5,000 or $6,000 a month, if I understand it correctly. So we're talking significant differences in prices, and so there's a lot of difference. And so, but we got people that maybe come from California. They've got a 1,200 or 1,400 square foot house, and they've sold it for $900,000. And maybe they had $400,000 of equity. They come to Arkansas, they can buy a house twice the size for cash because they have that much equity. They walked away with that much cash. They buy it here, and they don't have to get a loan on it because the housing is so much cheaper here. And so, I mean, in Arkansas, a 3,000 square foot house is going to be in the neighborhood of $450,000 if it's a pretty nice house. But in some of these places in California, Massachusetts, New York, you're looking at probably $1 million.
Well, bottom line, Arkansas is a top 10 destination for people moving from high, cost states to lower cost states. So we can be excited about that. As I say on the air, more power to you, but leave your politics at the door.
Right. But unfortunately, they don't. A lot of them don't. And that's the scary part. And they're also driving up prices for people here. And so, I mean, so I got into real estate 20-something years ago, and I was buying houses for quite a bit less money than what I am now, and what I'm seeing them for now. And I'm still buying a few here and there, but probably looking at least 100% increase. Maybe 150% increase from what it was when I first started buying 20 years ago.
The market will bear it.
It does. Yeah. But the thing is, though, it's a lot of it is government manipulation, and it's also just the lower crime that people are attracted to. They don't like living in areas where they're afraid they're going to get their car stolen, if they get the wheels stolen off their car, or get their house broken into. And so, like in the area where I'm from, they're in Greenbrier. Crime is really low. People can look up in America, where's the lowest crime area in the country, and Greenbrier pops up. Several years ago, I had a guy. He was from California. He was a helicopter mechanic. I think he was retired military, and he pulled up his family, drove to Faulkner County. He was staying in a motel with his U-Haul van and car towed behind it or whatever. And they were looking for a place to live, and they picked Greenbrier. They didn't have any family here, I don't think. Mm-hmm. He just pulled up and moved here, and so they picked this area because of the low crime, I think. And somehow he got my phone number. He called me up, and he was probably about the best tenant I've ever had. But they settled here. He finally bought a house. And what were you saying?
Sorry about that.
We had a leak going on.
Leak.
Go ahead.
And so so he was a great tenant. He was not one of these lefty whack jobs that came from California, but he was attracted to the low crime, and that's I think that's the primary reason he came here. I don't know if he had any relatives within maybe 100 miles. I don't know, and but that's why he came here, was from the low crime, and it's just like, oh, there's no crime in Greenbrier. Like you look at the statistics, and it's like zero almost. Conway's not that way, but Greenbrier, the crime rates are really, really low, and so people want to move to that area, and but that scares me to some extent because it's going to mess with our economy,
and crime will go up.
It is going to go up, right? And it's but it's also going to mess with politics in the area too, because you've got these people that city folks wanting to move to a kind of a rural area, and like, well, we want city politics. We want all these big city amenities. We want to treat the city government like it's a property owners association or or a apartment complex where we're going to provide all these amenities after we're pointing guns at people and taking their money. So we can have all these playgrounds and gymnasiums and maybe you want to build a big stadium for your favorite football team or basketball team or baseball team, and at taxpayer expense, which is just wrong.
All right, we got to get a break in. Let's do that. Then we'll come back. Final segment of the 8 o'clock hour. Going quickly this morning here on the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1 The Answer.
Looking for heavy equipment but don't know where to buy? Purple Wave Auction has you covered. Always online and always no reserve. It's your destination for construction or ag equipment ready to work. We even sell semis, trailers, and fleet equipment for your operation. Best part? It's free to join. Head to purplewave.com. That's purplewave.com. Sign up for a free account and start bidding today. Purple Wave Auction, the easiest and most straightforward way to buy and sell equipment.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found tax relief advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA. And I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100. And I'm telling you, I was ecstatic. Could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did. They gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8924. 800-575-8924. That's 800-575-8924.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Now, back to the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1 The Answer.
7 minutes until 9 o'clock on a Monday. It's going to be a beautiful day today, a lot of blue sky. Going to have highs in the lower 70s, and then tomorrow expect kind of more of the same, except we're going to get up into the 80s, I understand, tomorrow.
Sounds like a beautiful morning.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be some great, great weather. Locally here in the state, we're watching to see what becomes of the Secretary of State election. That's going to have to be decided here
sometime here
fairly soon, because there's people who were running primaries that we've got to know if they won or they haven't won.
Yeah. So we've either got Kim Hammer or Brian Norris. And so I guess y'all have had Michael White on to talk about this. And so from what I understand, the lawsuit had a couple different issues. One was that they weren't allowing the attorney to get close enough to actually see if the counting was being done correctly. So that could be a legitimate concern. I think the law says 3 feet. As I was watching the video, they weren't letting him get as close as 3 feet. And I haven't looked at the law to see exactly how it's worded. But then the other issue that I understand is there's some concern about was chain of custody. And so in Arkansas, we have paper ballots. In spite of what people say that they want paper ballots, we already have paper ballots. And they have the actual votes on them. You can read them and say, okay, this person voted for Norris or Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can look at that and read it, and you can count them by hand if you want to. The problem with that is that if you don't have good chain of custody, you don't know if those ballots are the same ones that actually got cast by the voters.
That's correct.
And so that's a very important issue, that if you do not have a very robust chain of custody program, then it could be like elections that were happening 75 years ago here in the South, where you've got corrupt Democrat leaders that they don't want to lose their election, and so they just change it.
And so they get rid of the real box and replace it with a filled up box of something wrong else. Kind of
right. And so I don't know how
balance.
Likely that is here, and I don't think that happened in Saline County. I don't think it happened. But if you don't have a robust chain of custody that's being followed, then how do you know?
Well, and the question is, every state passes statutes about how their elections are to be ran. The state legislators do that. Mm-hmm. It's not done by the quorum court or the city council. So the problems get, is when it's not as clear as mud and you don't know who had what.
Right. And I don't know. I'm not an election law expert, but I do understand a few things, and the chain of custody issue is a really big issue. If you don't have that one down hard, then I think that's justification for throwing an election out. Like if you cannot prove that those are the same ballots that were actually voted with, then I don't think you can count that election. I think you should redo it.
Which, if that is what happens, does that mean you need to do another election for Secretary of State? That's the question, because if you don't, then Brian Norris wins. If you do, we don't know who's going to win.
Right. So if you throw out Saline County's votes, you mean the Brian Norris wins the election, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I guess you could potentially re-vote Saline County, but then the Kim Hammer still has an advantage, because Saline County is his county. So I don't know what to do with it. What do you do when you mess up an election and it's a special election like that, or what do you call that? It's not really a special election. It's a runoff election. I don't know what to do with it. Just like, so they've maybe finally discovered that maybe there was enough cheating going on in Georgia and wherever else that Trump really probably did win. What do you do now? The water is under the bridge. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden was in office for the full term. Whether or not he was awake, we don't know. But he was in the office for the full term. Trump never was put in the presidency, allowed to stay in the presidency during that time, when it kind of looks like that maybe he did actually win. But you can't do anything about it afterward. Do you put people in prison? Yes. I think you definitely should put people in prison, arrest them. Maybe the death penalty would be appropriate for the election cheating, but I think punishment is very appropriate after the water's gone under the bridge. But the election is not over yet. They still got an election in the fall. Something could be done differently. I don't know what to do necessarily, but if chain of custody didn't happen robustly and correctly, then something has to happen, I think.
All right. We'll come back and pick up on that when we get back to the Dave Ellswick Show. It'll be 9 o'clock, or about 9:06 to be honest with you. And we've got some national and local news for you coming up here on the Dave Ellswick Show.
Find us at 1011fmtheanswer.com. Download our app, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv. KDXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Pakistan's preparing to host another round of U.S.-Iran talks this week, but there are questions as to whether those talks will even take place, especially given the American seizure of an Iranian cargo vessel that the U.S. says was a blockade runner.
Even before this incident, Iranian officials had been responding with a stony silence to this swirl of media reports coming out of the United States, including from President Trump, that the talks would take place on Tuesday. But media here, aligned to the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, had been saying that no decision to attend would be taken as long as the U.S. naval blockade of Iran's ports remained in force.
The BBC's Lise Doucette in Tehran. Been a series of arson attacks on Jewish sites around London. British police investigating whether Iranian proxies might have had a hand in that.
As the conflict in the Middle East continues to evolve, counter-terrorism policing and our partners remain alive to the threat of Iranian hostile activity in the UK. We are aware of public reporting that suggests this group may have links to Iran.
Vicki Evans with the London Metropolitan Police speaking with Sky News. Shreveport, Louisiana is the scene of the nation's deadliest shooting in more than 2 years. A man killed 8 children, including 7 of his own. He shot and wounded 2 women as well before he was shot dead by police. That followed a vehicle chase. Several University of Iowa students, among 5 people injured in yesterday's early morning shooting, happened near the University of Iowa City campus. As of now, there have been no arrests. Watching Wall Street, the Dow is down about 16 points. NASDAQ off 44 and the S&P trading 6 points in the red. More on these stories at townhall.com.
I talked to a lot of great companies. Very few of them actually literally surprised me, but Fellowship Home Loans sure did. For over 20 years, Mike and Brian and the team there have been helping families do something most people think is more complicated than it has to be. Get into a home, lower their rate, or tap into equity they didn't even realize they had. Everything at Fellowship is done in-house. One roof, one great team, all with a servant-led mentality. From your first phone call to closing, you're going to get people who know you by name. They'll know your situation. They treat you like family. They're also offering a free mortgage checkup right now. Don't miss out. Rates are lower now than if you purchased or refinanced your home in the last few years. Many Fellowship customers are saving hundreds of dollars a month when refinancing, and there are no payments for 2 months. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. This update brought to you by Marquardt Law Firm, your business and estate law experts. Learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. Texas businesses await refunds after the Supreme Court struck down President Trump's 2025 import tariffs. Companies like South Austin's World Interiors face huge price hikes. Officials are now setting up a portal for businesses to claim part of an estimated $175 billion in refunds. Hundreds rallied at the Texas state capitol against a proposed 150-mile Big Bend border wall, warning it could harm the ecosystem and disrupt tourism. Protesters criticized federal plans for transparency, calling to, quote, keep our land and rivers intact. Texas Emergency Management Academy trainees tested 8 months of training in a tornado simulation in the fictional town of Needland. The teams handled logistics, public information, and emergency operations, preparing for real-life disaster response scenarios. With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Progressive presents your Sports Flash. I'm John Thayer. The Arkansas baseball team was a winner yesterday as they defeated Georgia 6-3. Both teams had 7 hits in the ballgame. Arkansas improves to 9-7 in SEC play. Game 2 of the series is set for tonight in Fayetteville. Kansas City Royals were outscored yesterday in Detroit. They lost to the Tigers 10-9. The two teams combined for 27 hits. The Royals are now 7-12. Royals start a series tonight in New York against the Yankees. St. Louis Cardinals will play tonight in Houston. They'll meet the Astros, game 1 of the weekend series. St. Louis Blues wrapped up their season yesterday with a 5-3 victory in Utah against the Mammoth. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm John Thayer with your Sports Flash.
The Danielle Gill Podcast, now available on the Salem Podcast Network.
Actually, lowering prices has rarely ever been an accomplishment a Democrat could even claim. The Democrat modus operandi is to use each crisis as an excuse to pass legislation which increases spending, gives more power to the government, and which will make new crises which they can't then use as an excuse to pass more horrible legislation.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
Let's move on here on the Dave Ellswick Show, and been talking about a lot of different stories that are going on. There are stories that are breaking as we're on the air. One of being that we had seized an Iranian ship after opening fire on them, and we landed on the ship from helicopters and took control of the ship and took it into a harbor, and they were going to make sure that there weren't things on that ship that perhaps were. They were trying to run through the blockade Strait of Hormuz.
Were they going towards Iran or away from Iran?
Coming out of. Iran vows now retaliation after the U.S. seized a cargo ship, calling it armed piracy. Iranian officials vowed retaliation after the U.S. fired upon and seized an Iranian vessel in the Arabian Sea on Sunday. Officials condemned the move as their quotes here, armed piracy. We warn that the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will soon respond to and retaliate against this armed piracy by the U.S. military, read a statement from Iran's central headquarters. So you got that going on right now. I don't know how the Iranian military is going to respond since they don't have a navy, they don't have an air force. They do have some of an army left, but not much. Mm-hmm. So a lot of verbiage and a lot of chutzpah, but not anything there to be worried about, I would think.
I mean, they managed to shoot down a fighter plane, I guess, or was it a bomber, or a couple weeks ago. But so yeah, who knows what they have left in? And is this just some guy with a two-way radio shouting into the microphone saying, "We're going to get you," or is it legitimate?
No, I guess it's somebody. I guess they released a statement. Mm-hmm. Somebody released a statement. Right now, nobody knows who is really. I mean, even the United States doesn't know who really is in control of Iran.
Right. No, and we were talking about that last hour about, well, how do you figure out? I mean, in America, if the same thing had gone on here in America, and the chain of command had just gone down further and further and further, where they kept killing our leaders. After it happens 15 or 20 times, who would it be? Who would it be? Like the governor of Arkansas? Or who? I mean, who was? We were talking about congressmen, senators, the local janitor. I mean, what are we talking about once they keep killing leaders, and everybody sticks their head up to be the next leader, gets it shot off?
Yeah, I'm thinking that this will not solve itself. That at this point, the Iranian people are going to have to stand up and take over sooner or later, hopefully sooner.
Well, and I think if they don't, then what was the point of this? I think it's just going to be a cesspool that's going to continue to fester. Maybe it's just going to be a wart over there rather than being a worldwide wart, and which could be an improvement, obviously. But so if I kind of compare this a little bit to the way America started, we had the British, who were a bunch of pirates, they were harassing and brutalizing Americans. And so Americans were fighting against the British, trying to drive off these British pirates from the American shores. And the French came and helped us. And I don't think we would have been able to do it without the French helping us. But the French had an interest in defeating the British, because the British and the French were enemies. And so it wasn't like the French were giving us free aid to defeat the British. The French wanted to punch the British in the nose too. And so by running them out of America, it was a pretty good punch in the nose to the British, because the British were pretty cocky. And they really did think they were the master of the seas and the best military on the face of the earth. And they were. They really were at the time, I think. But this little old colony over in the U.S., they just got whooped. And the British just got whooped by their own colony or colonies. And the French helped. And so is this going to be something like that, where the Iranian people actually want help? Or were they just kind of content to be under the rule of the radical Muslims?
Well, they're going to have somebody who stands up and is going to be able to
emerge
and be able to be in control of what's going on in that country.
And there's apparently some evidence that they did want to stand up and overcome their brutal government, because they were protesting, and the government was murdering them. Apparently, it was thousands of people were killed by the government in the past 2-3 months prior to this invasion. And so maybe they are primed and ready to get rid of their crazy government, and maybe come back with something that's not so crazy. I don't know, though. I mean, they're.
It seems to me the problem that they have in Iran is that a part of the population are Iranians, and by extension, Muslims, and some of them are, even by a further stretch of the Muslim extremists. And then a good portion of the country still sees themselves as Persian, which they were before the Muslim takeover happened back in 1979. So, worries me that it might erupt into civil war over there.
And maybe the most reasonable solution is that maybe it gets busted up into several different countries, and they're no longer very powerful. You have the Persian people who aren't nearly so crazy, and you have the Muslims, and especially the extremist Muslims, who are just crazy. They need to be put in a cage. And so I don't know. I don't know what the solution is going to be or what the outcome is going to be. But here in America, we drove the British out. They were gone. They didn't have any power here in America. And they still don't have any power here in America. They still send their stupid music and their crazy art over here sometimes, and some of their dumb ideas. But they're no longer shooting us.
Yeah, they can't put troops up in our homes.
Right. Not anymore. Right. Now they're sending their dumb ideas.
Nor
over
taxes.
But our government taxes us and gives them money, I suppose, and it gives them free national security, I suppose, and we save them from the Nazis. But we should probably make them pay taxes for that.
A little late,
I suppose. But
yeah, a little late.
We'll just call it reparations.
Yeah, I don't think that'll work. All right, it's 9:14 here in the morning on Monday, Dave Ellswick Show. Let me make a quick reminder to you that at 10 o'clock, we're going to be joined by a representative of the Arkansas House that is going to talk about his bill on Sharia law that he is running, and we'll find out where it stands and what he's going to do about it. And that's from Marcus Richmond, State Representative Marcus Richmond, who will join us right after the news at 10 o'clock to talk about that. Should be an interesting discussion. He can tell us why it couldn't get out of committee last week. It was voted down in committee. And you know what I always say, committees are where laws go to die. So we will see what happens further on with this. Is he going to bring it back up in the general session next year? I would think that probably will be his only out on this.
And there's been some Sharia law legislation that's been brought up in the past. There's another legislator that has dealt with it. What is his name? He was also in the military. I can't remember his name. You know him as well as I do, probably better than I do. He's been on the show lots of times.
Okay.
I think he's from over kind of, I want to say kind of the Cabot area, but I can't remember his name. He's probably he's probably about 60 years old now.
Got me.
I don't know. I'm wanting to say Tim, but I don't think his name is Tim.
Yeah, we're going to play a game today. Name the legislator.
Name the legislator. I can see his face. I can't remember his name, but he was interested in this issue as well. I think he filed some legislation, and I think he was a little upset because some of the legislators killed it. But there are people that are interested in this issue, and I think it's something worth talking about. And I'm not exactly sure the best way to go about it, but I think the Muslim extremists are a serious threat.
Well, we got to look at what's going on in Europe just to see what's going on there, which is they're trying to do the same things here in the United States. We've talked about this on the air. The extremists at times are using our own laws and freedoms against us. Mm-hmm. And we need to understand that and figure out a way. Well, the only way you stop it is that every time they bring something up that they want to pass, you make sure that it doesn't.
Well, and so some of the things are that so we don't want to curtail our own liberties just because some crazy Muslims come over here. But I think we might need to tweak some of the laws to address them in a more principled way. So we should have freedom of religion, but that doesn't mean that anything qualifies as freedom of religion. I think that the notion is that we should have liberty and justice. And if your religion happens to be embracing injustice, then you shouldn't have liberty there. It's just not right.
Yeah, because Sharia law is, it's at loggerheads with the Constitution.
Well, and it's at loggerheads with just righteousness and justice, I think, and that's kind of where we're at. But there's been some precedent with the courts that, well, if it's a religion, you've got some special protections. I think that's nonsense, but it's probably consistent with the First Amendment. I think that was probably an oversight on some level to make a special provision for religion. It should just be, you have the liberty to do stuff that's good and righteous within the bounds of justice. So what is it? Was it, who was it that said, I have the right to swing my fist so long as I'm not hitting somebody else?
Yeah.
Right. And so you generally should have the right to do anything you want to do so long as it doesn't violate anyone else's rights. And I think that the same thing should be with religion. I don't think there should be a special liberty for religion or special protection for religion. And so if you want to do normal religious stuff that doesn't violate people's rights, that's fine. If you want to sacrifice humans, you can't.
Okay, but I gotta stop you and say, define for me normal religious things.
And that's you can't define it really. That's the reality.
Does that mean just in a Christian worldview or what?
So, I mean, I think there are some even pagan religions that are pretty peaceful. They don't violate people's rights.
Like the Wiccans, I think that
maybe so, or some of the Hindus and things like that. People of that nature, I think they're generally pretty peaceful. They're wrong and they're going to hell, but I don't think they generally attack people and violate other people generally. That may be true of Buddhists too. I don't know, but apparently the Muslims have this problem: is they do kill people and brutalize people based on their religious beliefs, and so that there's a difference.
Some do.
Some of them, right? Some of them do, and so there's a difference between people that are wanting to worship a statue versus those who want to murder you because you didn't go to their mosque the right mosque, maybe even, because apparently some of the Muslims also kill each other.
Well, you have different viewpoints of the Muslim faith by different people.
And the thing is, this sort of thing actually went on among Christendom, 300-400 years ago, 500 years ago, between the Protestants and Catholics. They would kill each other over differences in religious beliefs. I mean, and it wasn't just the Catholics doing it; it was the Protestants too. They would actually kill people over, from what I understand anyway, over religious differences. So they were pretty violent, and so people had reason to be afraid of them. And so it's a real issue that needs to be addressed. And so if you've got people that, like, you either have to join our religion or we're going to lock you in a cage or beat you up or torture you. Well, that's not freedom of religion. It's just not. It shouldn't be. It should be recognized as criminal activity and not protected as any kind of a religious practice, because, well, you don't have the right to impose your religion on someone else.
All right, 21 after 9. We got to get a break in. Let's do that. Then Paul and I will be back here on the Power Panel, part of the Dave Ellswick Show.
We bring you the biggest news stories of the day. Not to tell you what to think, but to allow you to have the most information so you can make up your mind. 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. The practice of manufacturing collisions between the Vatican and the President of the United States has continued with Pope Leo XIV because he is new in the job. And President Donald Trump, of course, always provides copy. Take an unknown, mix in the very well-known, and 1,000 columns are launched. The best commentary on this situation actually came from Vice President J.D. Vance more than a year ago. Quote, "It's very hard to fit a 2,000-year-old institution into the politics of 2025, Vice President Vance told me in March of last year." He added, "I try not to do that. Reporters ought to be taking heed of that as they cover the Pope and the President. Tell us what the principal said or posted if done specifically with the other party name. Don't overlay prior points of view. That's as silly as playing mind reader." A suggestion: whenever you hear or read a reporter asserting what a public figure thinks or feels, change your feed or at least turn on your misinformation shield.
If you're an investor with money in a 401k or IRA, what's happening right now in Washington could affect you directly. The Supreme Court ruling impacting Trump-era tariffs has injected new uncertainty into global trade policy. And when policy risk rises, investors move to safety. Plus, escalating tensions involving Iran are adding stress to an already fragile global landscape. Trade tensions, global instability, currency pressure. We're seeing gold and silver prices move higher again, with capital flowing toward tangible safe haven assets like precious metals. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Many Americans are rolling over a portion of their retirement savings into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty-free with Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
America is at a tipping point. To ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave, you need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. The Dave Ellswick Show is back. 101.1 The Answer.
All right, we continue here on the Dave Ellswick Show on a Monday. The high today is going to be in the 70s, and it's going to be clear skies outside, so should be a very pleasant day to go about doing. It's too bad it had to happen on a Monday. You know, I'd much rather have blue skies and sun and warm temperatures on the weekend than on the Monday.
It's coming. It's coming.
No, yeah. Well, I'm hoping that it's coming. This is kind of an interesting story. I want to read this to you. Democratic House candidate Sarah Garrett's campaign is on the defensive after a resurfaced video shows her recounting her role in the marriage of a pair of Satanists while serving as a minister in training. Throne Garrett, I think that's how she pronounces her first name. It's Trone. It could be Thrawn, I don't know. A Lutheran minister running in a battleground House district in Michigan in November's midterm election participated in the wedding of a Satanist couple back in 2006 while serving as an intern pastor in a West Virginia parish. Nearly 2 decades later, she delivered remarks for the Des Moines Storytellers Project, where she reflected that the marriage of 2 Satanists in the church offered a spiritual lesson about love. He asked me to pick the scriptures, Grat said on stage in 2023, referring to the senior pastor. Quote, irritated, I flipped through the Bible. Should I pick something with Satan in it to make them feel more at home? Eventually, I just put the bookmark, in at 1 Corinthians 13. If you've ever been to a Christian wedding, you've probably heard that scripture. All they would get from me was a basic Lutheran wedding.
Love is patient, love is kind.
Yeah. When the Apostle Paul wrote those words, he certainly never had in mind a small town in West Virginia. 2 Satanists and a Lutheran minister in training. But Paul knew people, and people haven't changed that much over the centuries. It's hard to love one another. We often need to be reminded how. Garrett is vying to unseat Representative Nunn, a Republican of Iowa, for a toss-up congressional seat in the southwestern part of their state. Throughout the campaign, she has been criticized for expressing beliefs that Republicans have argued do not align with the Christian faith that she represents. Quote, she's made it clear that the values Iowa families live by every single day are the ones she's running against, Nunn previously told Fox News. At the 2023 love-themed storytelling event, Garrett chose to spotlight her, quote, first wedding with the Satanist pair. She recounted that the couple had shown up under the mistaken belief they had to be married in a church and proceeded to integrate their Christian beliefs. These people could barely stand us. They didn't believe in or really have any respect for what mattered to us, she said. The senior pastor went ahead and married them anyway, with reading the words, love is patience, love is kind, over them. Though Garrett expressed initial concern about the wedding, by the end of the ceremony, she spoke tenderly about the man with a pentagram tattooed on his face. Quote, was he getting teary? Garrett asked during her remarks. They had a lot of baggage between the two of them, but there was no denying how they were looking at each other. At no point in the speech did Garrett suggest that she or the senior pastor had asked the couple to reject Satanism. So what happened to that couple? I have no idea, she said. We never saw them again. Asked for comment, a spokesman for the Garrett's campaign told Fox News, quote, as a minister in training, Sarah followed the direction of her supervising pastor and had no control over who walked through the church's doors. It was her job to minister to everyone, including people who do not share beliefs with. Like so many Iowa Christians, Sarah's faith calls her to love thy neighbor, and she follows Jesus' example of embodying his grace for everyone. A source familiar with the campaign disputed that God helped marry the Satanist couple because she was not ordained until 2008, but Garrett's own words and actions during the ceremony appeared to acknowledge her active role in the wedding. Quote, this was going to be my first wedding, Garrett reflected in the remarks. The resurfaced video comes as her beliefs have been heavily scrutinized in the contest in this swing state. See, that's really getting to the silliness.
Sound like perfect credentials for Democrat.
That people get into when they're, talking politics. Let's get to our news here at the bottom of the hour. Then we'll come back and we'll talk more and more. But I do believe that a lot of people, when they get into talking about Christianity, do not cover Christianity as taught in the Bible. Take a break. We'll be back.
In Washington, things are heating up again between the U.S. and Iran ahead of another round of talks this week scheduled in Pakistan. There are doubts the talks will actually take place, though, especially given the U.S. seizure of an Iranian cargo ship that the U.S. says was trying to breach the blockade of Iran's ports. Another suspected drug-running boat has been blown to bits by the U.S. military in the Caribbean Sea. This time, 3 people were killed. Powerful storms have delivered a heavy blow to the nation's midsection in recent days, flooding rains, damaging hail, and fierce winds, even some tornadoes reported. Damage assessment going on in northern Japan following a powerful earthquake that struck off the coast. On Wall Street, the Dow down 24 points, while the NASDAQ is off 102 points, the S&P down 13. More details, srnnews.com.
I talked to a lot of great companies. Very few of them actually literally surprised me, but Fellowship Home Loans sure did. For over 20 years, Mike and Brian and the team there have been helping families do something most people think is more complicated than it has to be. Get into a home, lower their rate, or tap into equity they didn't even realize they had. Everything at Fellowship is done in-house. One roof, one great team, all with a servant-led mentality. From your first phone call to closing, you're going to get people who know you by name. They'll know your situation. They treat you like family. They're also offering a free mortgage checkup right now. Don't miss out. Rates are lower now than if you purchased or refinanced your home in the last few years. Many Fellowship customers are saving hundreds of dollars a month when refinancing, and there are no payments for 2 months. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Right here in our backyard, sellers trust Purple Wave Auction to move their equipment, from excavators and ag equipment to trucks and specialty trailers. Our no-reserve online auctions help local sellers turn iron into opportunity. You get a dedicated territory manager who knows your operation, your market, and your timeline, backed by nationwide buyer demand, local service, national reach, real results. See why more sellers choose Purple Wave. Visit purplewave.com to get started today.
In a world where more and more people decide what's right and wrong based on how they feel, what happens when feelings become the only moral standard? If emotions alone define truth, then who decides why murder, theft, or violence are wrong? And if someone feels justified in destroying property or harming others, on what basis can society say they're wrong? For 50 years, Dennis Prager has challenged audiences around the world to think deeply about the moral foundations of civilization. In his new book, If There Is No God, he confronts the biggest questions of human existence. Why does evil go unpunished? Why do innocent people suffer? And can morality survive without God? Whether a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, this book offers serious answers for a morally confused age. Clear, provocative, and accessible. If There Is No God by Dennis Prager. Available now at pragerstore.com. That's pragerstore.com. Larry Elder sees the president blazing a trail.
The Iranians hold a chokehold because people are afraid they're going to build a nuke. We haven't stopped them. Venezuela has a thug that's run the country into the ground, and we put up with it in our own hemisphere. Same thing with Cuba, and there's nothing we can do about it. Trump has walked in and said no, no, and no. That's what President Trump has done.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 6, right before Hugh Hewitt at 9 on 101.1. The Answer. The conservative voice of Arkansas. The Dave Ellswick Show on 101.1. The Answer.
Continuing on here on the Dave Ellswick Show, if you just joined us, I'm Dave. I'm the host of the show. And then Paul Calvert is here as well. He comes in each Monday as part of the power panel. We're missing some of our members today, so it's just he and I doing our thing together. It's interesting as you watch people at times wrestle with laws that we have in our country. And there's a lot of that going on right now in California. A young man who went viral for confronting California lawmakers about harms he says he faced from childhood medical transition, is speaking out against a bill he believes could make it harder for vulnerable minors to get proper counseling. Joni Skinner, a detransitioner and ambassador for GenSpec, testified at a California Senate Judicial Committee hearing last week against Senate Bill 934, a bill sponsored by Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener, familiar name from the past, yes, that would let victims of conversion therapy seek damages through malpractice lawsuits even years after the counseling occurred. Wiener's office defines conversion theory to include sexual orientation or gender identity change efforts. Critics, including the California Family Council, say that Senate Bill 934 is so broadly written that it could expose therapists to lawsuits for talk therapy on sexuality and gender identity. Skinner says he grew up in a small town in Michigan in a religious family and was diagnosed with high-functioning autism at a young age. He said he struggled with feeling different from other boys and was bullied for having stereotypical feminine interests. As he reached puberty, he became increasingly uncomfortable in his own body and carried shame that he might grow up to be gay or an effeminate man. After seeing online influence he admired undergo gender transitions, he said he found the idea appealing. Skinner told Fox News that he was referred to a gender therapist and an endocrinologist who affirmed his feelings and suggested medically transitioning would be a way he could feel, quote, normal, unquote. The medical and mental health providers didn't bother to ask why I felt the way I did, Skinner told Wiener at the hearing. They poisoned my body with blockers and hormones, arresting my puberty and messing with my development. The result is I'm a 23-year-old gay man who's never had an orgasm and may never experience one. Let that sink in. Though his mother resisted the idea of making permanent changes to his body, Skinner said the medical professionals told her that his gender dysphoria originated in the womb from a hormonal imbalance, claiming he had a girl brain in a boy's body. He said they were told that transitioning with hormones was the only solution to his problems, but the drugs left him with fainting spells, painful muscle spasms, and urinary problems. In 2023, a new endocrinologist suggested he stop taking the drugs to see whether that would resolve his problem. Around the same time, he began questioning what doctors had told him over the years after reading leaked internal reports from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH, which he said revealed doubts about the science behind the treatments. This led Skinner down a, quote, rabbit hole of research, essentially. And I found that there was, no low quality to no evidence to doing this to me, he told Fox News. Skinner said he eventually stopped treatment, but years later still suffers from urinary problems and sexual dysfunction that he attributes to the drugs. He said those lasting effects are part of what now drives him to speak out. He believes that the California bill targeting conversion therapy as it relates to gender identity is one that would actually end up harming gay people. For me, it did very much act as a chemical conversion therapy. Skinner argued that the therapist should be allowed to explore the underlying causes of a minor's distress before steering them towards a gender identity outcome. So this is going to become more and more of a topic that's going to be brought into the court system, especially since we just had a lawsuit that was that found gender affirmative care caused problems for a man who was trying to transition to be a woman, and or was it a woman transitioning to be a man? Val, that they gave them, I think, about $20 million because of the hell they went through.
Well, so the thing is, there are people who are confused. Children get confused about these things, and people who aren't confused need to help them to become unconfused. I mean, that's those of us who are in our right minds need to help these people. If a medical professional or a professional therapist who has a license from the state is encouraging these delusions rather than helping them overcome the delusions, those people should lose their license to practice. These licensing schemes provide credentials for these professionals that the public trusts them. The public will trust these people to give good advice and provide good care. And when these professionals are giving terrible advice and giving very destructive care, the state shouldn't be giving them license. They should draw back those licenses and remove them so these people don't have credentials that will hoodwink the public into using what amounts to charlatans to provide care for their children. And this is going to show right now is that how worthless the licensing process is for determining whether or not someone is actually capable and competent to provide care to the public. And it's I think it's outrageous that a medical professional like a doctor or a therapist will get credentials from the state, and then they'll have a child come to them that's having some confusion issues about their gender, and rather than help the child and say, you're a boy, and we're going to help you with that. You really are a boy, and you're going to become a man one day. That should be the appropriate approach. But when these professionals come along and say, you know what, you're not actually confused. You were a boy, but now you're going to become a girl, and we're going to give you these special drugs that will help you transition from being help you transition from being a boy so that you can become a girl, and this is just going to make your life so much better. And then so they're the doctors, people trust them, and so these parents or these children say, well, we'll try it, let's do this, so I want to feel better. And so you've got kids that are being wrecked by the medical community and these so-called professional therapists. And these therapists and medical professionals, they should lose their license over this. If they embrace this, I think that is pretty solid evidence that they're not qualified for the job. That they're not mentally stable themselves. That they've bought into a delusion, and they've been hoodwinked themselves. I don't think we need those kind of people being given credentials by the state. Strip them of their credentials. Let them flip burgers instead.
Val, what do you think?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we were just sitting here talking about
the specific question.
Well, the specific question is, should people be able to take these doctors to court that prescribe gender-affirming care? And now, there's laws going up saying that you can't do it. There's been countries that don't allow doctors to practice it. What's the answer to that?
I think if a child is under the age of 18, which is the definition of a child, then it doesn't matter what a doctor has to say. Like, a child cannot make those decisions. A child is a child for a reason, because your parents are responsible until you're 18 years old. And I think that any doctor that would push that on a child also has a problem with their mental health. So that's my statement.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're either they've got mental problems themselves, or they're malicious.
Yeah.
And I think
it's like a serial killer.
Yeah, something like that, but a little different. But yes, I think that's it's I think it's just evidence. Even if the doctors are just doing it on people who are 18 years old and older, that's still evidence the doctors whacked mentally or they're malicious, because the reality is that you can't become a man. There's nothing you can do. You just can't do it. And I can't become a woman regardless of what I want to do or what somebody wants to do to me. They can mess me up and turn me into a freak. They can mess you up and turn you into a freak. But they can't turn you into a man. They can't turn me into a woman, regardless of what they do. And if a doctor thinks that's possible, that doctor is not in their right mind.
And last week I posted on my Facebook page that Disney now is putting back the word "ladies and gentlemen"
in the bathroom
at the entrance. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. To me, that says that Disney is acknowledging that there are only two genders. There aren't 26 different genders. You're not cis. You're not whatever. There's two genders. And for the longest time, Disney led this stuff, because back when my kids were younger, we would go to Florida and stuff like that, and there would be gay pride everywhere. But it wasn't announced because, we didn't have the internet back 20, 30 years ago. I mean, we did, but not to the context that we did now. But I didn't want to take my kids to Disney because they would push gay LGBT day at Disney, Of course, the GBT part, or I'm LGBTQ, that part, QT or whatever, Q-tip, whatever. But that part wasn't so prevalent as it is now. But still, I didn't want to explain to my kids why that guy was holding hands with the other guy at 6 years old.
Right.
So that's how far back Disney started this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally led the charge on it.
And so maybe Disney is discovering that
exactly
this is expensive for them. That they get a few.
They still they're still packed. I was there last year. They're always packed, and they need to reconsider their prices, if you ask me, because I think it's outrageous when you sit there and you have a parent that has 5 kids. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole, but they're it's like $15-$20 for a Coke at Disney. It's just ridiculous. And the toys like $30. You can't take, unless you're saved up for 2 years for vacation, like just to go and enjoy yourself at Disney. It's ridiculous. It's like $200 to get in.
Doesn't appeal to me.
I mean, it doesn't me. I hate it. But for little kids, which is what it's supposed to be about, I don't think Walt would be happy about the monetary way that Disney is now. But I do think, like I said, they literally just acknowledged there are only two genders. And that's important because they're part of the bigger picture of this that help push all of this stuff.
Have they stopped having men be playing princesses now?
I don't know. I saw something about that too.
Apparently
they fired 1,000 employees last week, though.
Yeah, they were cutting payroll.
Yeah,
I had read about that, but my question has always been, when you can go and you see the princess from Snow White or whatever, and it's a guy that's dressed up in the princess outfit.
Well, I guess if you want your princess to be 6'4", I suppose you could do that.
Yeah, but
you?
But if you're taking your kids to that, is that something that you want to, have them seen, being part of?
Go see a cross-dresser as a princess? Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting how they've dealt with this. It was his granddaughter that was helping push all this crap at Disney anyway. And, I have no idea what Walt would have said to her now, but I don't think she would have enjoyed hearing it.
I know in 2023, they were saying something about men playing princesses, but I didn't see any of that when I was there. And if I would have probably
said something.
It would have been disgusting to me. Disney parks say anyone can be a princess. That was 2023. I don't think that.
So nobody.
Isn't that interesting? They push it, but I don't see where.
You think it's still part of their parks policy?
I think, I don't know. I don't see any men dressed up as a princess on here. So you're going to tell, there looks like there's one TikTok of male Disney staffer dressed as that was a staffer though. That was like a restaurant person. I don't really see any trans. I don't know about that. We'll have to look into that because I don't know if they've done that. Has anybody seen anybody that has seen a male dressed as a princess?
I haven't brought it up.
Right. So that's another thing. So that's the thing. So places like Ulta over there, they don't advertise the men with beards and makeup in their little catalog, a 30, 40 page catalog that they send you around Christmas time and stuff like that. But when you walk in, there's like 3 or 4 of them, and you take your 5-year-old kid in there, you have to explain to them. I've had people tell me that they understand why I did that. But, I think Disney may be the same way. You're literally setting the pace for everyone, but you're not doing it. But I have seen where there's this trans guy that goes around to all the places, and he's been in all the Disney's bathrooms, trying to get kicked out. How stupid, right?
Yeah, that's somebody with an agenda.
And he's in there taking pictures in a women's bathroom, dressed as a woman, but he's ugly. He's ugly.
I understand. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll go on picking up either some more about this particular topic or others here on the Dave Ellswick Show. Coming up after the news at the top of the hour, we'll be talking to Marcus Richmond, the state representative who has a piece of legislation denying, Sharia law here in Arkansas. We'll talk about that piece of legislation, why he filed it, and why he thinks that the committee, did not pass it out of the committee to be taken up by the entire legislative body. That's all coming up here on the Dave Ellswick Show.
And now it's time for the Cat's Corner.
This is John Catsimatidis. Leadership matters. 2 types of leadership, whether you're in politics or whether you're in the corporate world. If you're in politics, there's a great divide between Democrats and Republicans. I remember the days when Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, they didn't like each other, but they sat around the table and they made peace with each other. Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill, they didn't like each other. But at the end of the day, they sat down around a round table, and guess what? They made a deal that was good for America. So I call upon all politicians, common sense, no nonsense. Leaders in the corporate world have to find out and know what's going on, whether they're there or not there. There's an old Greek expression, don't let the violin play behind your back. Leaders don't shut doors. They make sure the door is open and always know what's going on the other side of the office. Leadership matters. I'm John Catsimatidis. That's your Cat's Corner.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head, and the total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Chris DeGaulle believes what he sees.
I can't say, gee, I don't want an impact on oil prices for 3 to 4 weeks, 2 months, and let Iran have a nuclear weapon and let them blow up the Middle East and beyond. I have to do what's right. I believe him. I think he's that consequential. history will be the judge, but I believe him when he says I had to do what was right.
The Chris DeGaulle Show, weekday mornings at 6, right before Dave Ellswick at 7 on 101.1 The Answer. The Dave Ellswick Show continues now. 101.1 The Answer.
We continue. Let's finish up this hour. Again, Marcus Richmond, state representative. I want to say congressman. I know that's not right, but state representative is going to be on talking about his legislation that would attack Sharia law and keep it out of our country or keep it out of our state. So we'll talk to him about that and why he brought up that piece of legislation. We have a caller. I've got about a minute that I can take with them. Wants to talk about a run-in they had at Dollywood, and it's John, I think. John, how are you? John, are you there? We got you now, John?
Yep.
Okay.
I was going to say, me and my family, we went to, we did a family reunion in Pigeon Forge, and we went to Dollywood.
Yeah.
And I paid for tickets to go to the park and then to the water park. And then when we went to the water park the next day, there was a guy that disrobed and was wandering around in a thong bikini and all that other stuff, and had to go talk to the staff. They ended up telling us that, they come in there and, like, they'll be fully dressed and then they disrobe. But this guy was just wandering around in the kids' splash pads, like in the little kids' areas. He wasn't going to any of the adult stuff that I could tell. I ended up having to collect my family and, like, leave. And I looked online and stuff, and apparently Dolly Parton's pretty forward with sympathizing with, like, LGBT stuff. So I don't think me and my family are going to go back there again.
All right. Thanks for your call. We appreciate that. So they were showing up in regular clothes, but when they disrobed at the water park, they were wearing a woman's bikini and walking around.
Yeah, and exposing woman's bikini too.
Okay. Yep, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest. I mean, that may surprise a lot of people, but it does not surprise me. Yeah, I don't know what Dolly Parton's feelings are on the whole thing about
so if it had just been like a Speedo, like, you got people that come from Europe, and when they go swimming, that's what they wear. So it's pretty weird here in America for men to dress like that.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I've seen that before, but it was. I saw those too, but
so he was actually
it wasn't that.
This guy was actually wearing a top though, like a woman's.
Yeah, no, he was wearing like a top like a woman, like he had breasts, and he didn't. He was just flat chested, like wearing a thong and the bra, like I don't know what it's called.
He was being creepy.
Yeah, he was being uber creepy.
All right. How old were your kids? Do you mind telling me?
At the time, it would be 7 and 12.
Okay. Well, at an age that they might see him and ask questions, about it.
Yeah. I was just like, we're not doing that. And I've told my kids that, you can love somebody and tell them, like, and completely disagree with them at the same time.
That's exactly right. You are exactly correct on that. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. I got to get going because we got news coming up, and then we're going to talk about and we're going to talk about Sharia law on the other side of the news here on the Dave Ellswick Show.
news breaks fast. We break it down faster. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. KDXE, Kamak Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. Amit Thomason. Things are heating up again between the U.S. and Iran.
President Trump announced that U.S. negotiators would head to Pakistan on Monday for another round of talks with Iran. But then the U.S. seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship trying to get around a naval blockade. Iran denounced the seizure, and the incident threw into question plans for more talks. A 2-week ceasefire is set to expire Wednesday.
White House correspondent Craig Clugston. Another suspected drug-running boat and blown to bits by the U.S. military in the Caribbean Sea. A refund mechanism for businesses that paid tariffs were struck down by the Supreme Court goes online today.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection says importers and their brokers were able to begin claiming refunds online beginning at 8 a.m. It's the first step in a complicated process that also might eventually lead to refunds for consumers who were billed for some or all of the tariffs on products shipped to them from outside the United States. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled in late February that President Donald Trump usurped congressional taxation authority when he set double-digit import tax rates on products from almost every other country. Bernie Bennett reporting.
Strong storms have dealt a heavy blow to the nation's midsection in recent days, flooding rains, damaging hail, and fierce winds.
As you go from the winter season into spring and summer there's that transition season, or the weather's transitioning there, where you're going from the predominantly colder air to the predominantly warmer air, and we tend to get more intense storm systems this time of year.
Yeah, that's David Cousins at the National Weather Service. On Wall Street this morning, stocks so far have been bouncing between small gains and losses. Right now, the Dow is down. It's off about 118 points. NASDAQ, 173 points lower. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven you can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 844-94-BIBLE. That's 844-94-BIBLE. 844-94-BIBLE.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at JurekDDS.com. Hot Springs National Park is celebrating America's upcoming 250th birthday alongside its own 194th anniversary with a community event on the Arlington lawn featuring about 20 organizations highlighting Arkansas's conservation and cultural history. Ford is recalling nearly 1.4 million F-150 trucks in the U.S. over a transmission defect that could cause sudden downshifting and increased crash risk. Regulators say the issue may stem from a faulty sensor, and Ford will fix it with a free software update after reports of crashes and injuries. The Arkansas Supreme Court has reversed a lower court ruling in the 2025 fatal shooting of Catholic high school student John Allen Statz, sending the case back to be tried in adult court. The victim's family called the decision a major step toward justice and thanked state officials involved in the appeal. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm John Thayer on 101.1 The Answer. On the NASCAR Cup Series yesterday at Kansas Speedway, Tyler Reddick was the winner while Kyle Larson was second. Chase Briscoe was third. Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace rounded out the top five. Rest of the top 10 was Brent Keselowski, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Ty Gibbs, and Chris Buescher. Baseball action yesterday, the Kansas City Royals lost in New York. They were beaten by the Yankees 7-0. The Yankees sweep the Royals. Cole Reagan drops to 0-4. Royals are now 7-15 on the season. St. Louis Cardinals yesterday, winners in Houston in 10 innings. They beat the Astros 7-5. Both teams had 8 hits. The Cardinals are now 13-8. Northside Power, your trusted name when the power goes out. Generators isn't something they do, it's all they do. Find out more at northsidepower.com. I'm John Thayer with your Sports Flash on 101.1 The Answer.
If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1 The Answer.
RedState.com captures the pulse of grassroots conservatism. Red State staff of contributors are on top of breaking news with stories and analysis that challenge the established agenda. RedState.com educates, motivates, and activates passionate conservatives across America, arming them with the facts that put them ahead of the political curve. No wonder RedState.com is a must-read for elected officials and for citizens who want to make their vote count. RedState.com is the place where influence meets action. Log on to redstate.com today.
We bring you the biggest news stories of the day. Not to tell you what to think, but to allow you to have the most information so you can make up your mind. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
All right, going on. Excuse me. Still got allergies. Still bothering me. 7 minutes after 10, here on the Dave Ellswick Show, we're going to welcome in state legislator and state representative. Thank you. Marcus Richmond to the Dave Ellswick Show. Can you? I guess my first question is going to have to be, why did you feel that this piece of legislation was necessary?
Well, Dave, I don't think it's any secret when you look around the world and here in the United States, you look at Western Europe, what's happened there as far as the Muslim community, how they are moving and taking such political control. That goes up into Sweden, Finland, Great Britain. And then, you look at Dearborn, how impactful, and the fact that in Dearborn, you got a mayor there that's telling Christians that, pack up and move. You don't like us naming a street after a terrorist. Well, then you just need to go ahead and find some other place to live. And so I just, again, my experience in the Marine Corps, my experience living over there with them for a couple of years, training them and seeing what they can do and how they do it. I just felt like that this needed to be brought forward now, even though it's a fiscal session, and we usually don't run bills like this during a fiscal session, and you have to get permission, which is what I tried to do. Okay, and you were denied that, correct? Yeah, I mean it's a heavy lift. Deliberately, it's set up where to get something that's not a fiscal bill on the calendar, the bar is raised higher. Off the House floor, it's a 2/3 vote that you've got to reach there. So the threshold is higher than just with a normal bill. And then in committee, I looked at the committee, looked at the makeup of the committee, and I knew that that was going to be tough. And it failed in committee by voice vote. I'm not a member of that committee, so I couldn't ask for a roll call or anything like that. Don't know if I would have. But it was, and in all honesty, I think there's a possibility. I needed 11 votes, and there may have been 11. But they were tentative in how they sounded off. And then the no's were very loud, and so the chair called it for the no's. All right, so explain to my listeners what the piece of legislation says. Well, the main thing on the legislation, and we took this out of Texas because Texas has the same issues and same problems going on. the main issue is a property rights issue, really. And that in Texas, people were going in, Muslim folks, going in and buying property, and maybe they weren't reading the whole thing as they should or whatever, but instead of actually buying a house like some of them thought they were, many of them probably thought they were, you buy an interest. You buy an interest in that house. And so if you have to dispose of that house, so you get, your company tells you you're going to go work somewhere else, then you find yourself trying to dispose of that house, and you run into this huge legal issue. It's kind of like owning a timeshare. I mean, you're just kind of stuck, except it's not disclosed. It's not legal how they do it. And so that's what we were trying to address is basically shine some light on this, what I think is a sketchy practice on real estate. And then also the Sharia part of it comes down that if there is a legal matter that happens in this community and it is something that needs to go to the court, well, then the court's either going to be an Arkansas court or a federal court. No tribunals or anything like that. And what happens in some of these communities as they progress in Muslim communities, a lot of times they set up their own tribunal. And the next thing you're going in front of people, and the peer pressure is incredible. If there's not, I mean, you think the Democrat Party has peer pressure? Go in and start dealing with the imams and stuff in a Muslim majority country, and in this case, a Muslim majority community. They can bring incredible peer pressure and bend people to their will.
So this is Paul Calvert here. I listened to your testimony there in committee the other day, and so I guess I'm curious about where this goes. So let's say an Amish community decides to set up something like what we're talking about here, and they decide to say, this is only for Amish people who share our faith, and so we don't really want people in our community who aren't Amish. And also, we don't want it because, it's a violation of 1 Corinthians 6, I think is maybe what they would point to. And so they want to have their own elders meeting to deal with issues that arise. And so let's say they have a property dispute, or maybe somebody's cow gets run over or whatever it is. And so they want to deal with it in-house, if you will, rather than go into the courts because they don't actually believe in going to court against one of their brethren. Would that fall afoul of this law if your legislation was passed?
Well, I think it would depend on the state that they're in and how the laws are written there. Potentially, if there is if it is something that moves into a possible criminal activity or a lawsuit type deal, then I would think that it would need to be settled by our laws. Everything that is something that, and again, I understand the Amish, they want to avoid that, right. and they do. And see, I think that's a good example right there, in that they do keep things closed in. They have a lot of pressure on their people to conform as well. Mm-hmm. And the difference is that the Amish, they're avoiding politics.
Right.
The problem with Islam is not only a religion, but it's also a political system.
That's correct. They're infiltrating. And the other thing is that Amish don't go around murdering people. And
no,
so they're pretty peaceful people, as opposed to the Muslims, which I'm pretty sympathetic to some of your concerns here, because if you've got a religion that is apparently a pretty central part of the religion is some degree of violence against people who aren't believers, if you will, and that's scary. Yeah. And you probably know more about it than I do, but I mean, is that a fair representation of Islam?
I would say it is. I mean, if you want to know what their goal is, then all you have to do is listen to them. And again, there was several different churches in Little Rock. When I say several, 3 specifically, there was 3, I don't know, they call themselves pastors, ministers, whatever, but priests from these from one denomination that showed up to speak against the bill. And, their comment is, we do a lot of things with the Muslim community, and these are progressive churches to begin with. But they do a lot of things with the Muslim. Well, and my point is this, is that you always have the most reasonable people show up first. They're the ones that, again, they're just like us. They just want to be, kind of left alone and worship and stuff. But then eventually, as the progression goes on and as the community gets bigger, if you pay attention to how it progresses, those folks, anybody that is a moderate, is eventually told to shut up. And the more radical element gains influence, gains power. This particular place could exist probably, it could exist 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and you wouldn't even know it was there. But I believe at some point, some point it's going to, you're going to have a more radical element come in there. And it'll be things like, the next thing you know is that, you got 11 or 12-year-old girl walking across the street and somebody tells her to cover her hair or some other thing similar to that. Right. And then if you look overseas, over in Western Europe and stuff, they use violence extensively against anybody that's not part of their community and threats and actual physical violence. And they do. They have come out and said that the goal is that every household in America will be Islam, and it will happen either voluntarily or by force.
By force. Well, and so when you have that ideology, I mean, and I don't know, I'm not familiar with Islam enough to know if this is actually what's written in their handbook, if you will, their religious code. I mean, is that actually orthodoxy or is that extremism? I mean, because I know the Bible pretty well.
Well, it is in the Quran. They are commanded to if they go into another country and you have people that are non-believers and stuff, that the first effort is to convince them to become believers. If they don't become believers, then you convince them that they're going to have to pay this tax. And if for some reason they don't pay that tax or they continue to resist in some manner, then it is your duty to go ahead and eliminate that potential disagreement.
Right. So I don't know the Quran well enough to know that, but I do know that I know the Bible pretty well, and so I know that the process, if you will, for evangelism in the Bible, especially the New Testament, it's through moral persuasion. It's not through force.
Yes.
And so even though there have been some people in Christendom, if you want to call it that, over the centuries that have used force, they were wrong. I think we could point to Scripture to say that, and I think I can pretty confidently do that because I do consider myself a Bible scholar, but I can't make that argument for Islam because I don't know it well enough. But from what I gather from people who do consider themselves knowledgeable, okay, if you've got a religion where their foundational orthodoxy is actually violence for evangelism purposes or proselytizing or whatever you want to call it, that makes them more like a criminal gang or a band of pirates rather than a legitimate religion.
How about a cult?
Cult would work too, I suppose, but they're kind of like their foundational ideology is criminal behavior. Is that fair?
Yeah, and again, it goes to, they're just like, in some cases, the people there, they cover a very large, demographics as far as you do have people that are Islamic and they really, very little practice. Normally they're living in countries where Islam certainly isn't a religion, the majority, because again, the peer pressure is incredibly difficult to deal with. And then you have those who are moderate and kind of live a life that they want to make a living, take care of their family. You have those folks, but then the problem comes in that you have the extreme radical people that they truly believe that their mission, and this is, again, they're reading the Quran, they're listening to different parts of the Quran, and what it says about that, their mission is to make the whole world Islam. And they have the right to do that either through persuasion or by force.
Mm-hmm.
And those who are, and again, you all you have to do is look overseas and look at the different, whether it's a Muslim majority country or if it's like Western Europe, and you see that eventually the moderates, you don't hear their voice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear them speaking up because they're afraid to.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid, just like a non-believer, Islamic, somebody that doesn't believe in Islam, afraid to speak up. And if they do, then they can expect to potentially have violence directed towards them.
So in turn, they condemn us for saying that they're all radical when they're, But I was listening to this gentleman who was talking about, who's explaining, okay, yes, maybe not all of them are radical, but those aren't the ones we're worried about. 19 radicals blew up and flew planes into the Twin Towers. It wasn't the moderates.
And my concern is, are they radicals or are they orthodox? I mean, because there's some radical Christians, if you will, who are violent. They'll blow people up, they'll murder people, but they're not orthodox.
Well, the issue is this, in that their version of the Bible, the Quran, is what they, supposed to be, what they listen to, what they read, just like we read, the New Testament. We use the Old Testament, as the history and as the basis to understand, the purpose of Christ and why he come here.
Sure.
And these folks, they look at the Quran, and the Quran itself, like I said earlier, gives them direction on how to deal with us.
Mm-hmm.
We that have been misled, as they think we have. And it does include the potential for violence. Now, again, there is a lot of people out there that are not going to be violent.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems that somehow or another, for some reason, specifically in this religion, that the people who tend to pursue this world domination view eventually become the voice that you hear, gain, maybe influence beyond what their numbers would suggest they should have. And I think that is part of the intimidation process. I think that, and you can have the same thing in some cults and stuff that claim to be Christian. That the membership is intimidated by the leadership to a point where they're fearful, and they may have to basically sneak out and escape at some point. So it's not just Islam. It can happen in a lot of different forms of religion, but it is certainly written down in the Quran how they're supposed to handle us, and it does include the potential for violence if for some reason they think that's necessary.
Our guest is State Representative Marcus Richmond. We'll be back to talk with him further about this legislation when we return on the Dave Ellswick Show.
Are you about to turn 65 and you're confused about Medicare? Hi, it's Doc Washburn. My friend Tammy Chase is a local Medicare enrollment specialist who meets with you in person and makes it simple. Tammy takes the time to understand your needs. She walks you through every option in plain language that's easy to understand. There's no confusion and no pressure, just expert help you can trust. Call my friend Tammy Chase for expert help in making it easy. Tell her Doc sent you. TammyChaseInsurance.com.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus with a message of perseverance, faith, and a shared global destiny.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before since the book of Acts.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? What does the Bible say?
We have to become fighters in the spirit for God. We don't accept what the enemy wants to do with our culture. We don't accept what he wants to do with the nation. If we keep fighting we win.
Powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie based on Jonathan Cahn's international bestseller. The Dragon's Prophecy combines history and scripture with faith, justice, and renewal. The Dragon's Prophecy, a new film by Dinesh D'Souza. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. You might miss someone who has valuable skills to offer to help your business thrive right now and in the future. Because the truth is this: Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars, skilled through alternative routes. When you let their story unfold, you gain a competitive advantage, because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. See the real person, complete. See what others miss. Hire skills first. Learn why it's a competitive advantage at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology, written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
You can watch the show right now. The Dave Ellswick Show is streaming live on Facebook. This is 101.1, The Answer.
Coming back here to the Dave Ellswick Show, State Representative Marcus Richmond is our guest. He's got a piece of legislation that he presented to committee to try to get it during the fiscal session. It was denied to be heard during the fiscal session. And basically, it's saying that you can't start a Muslim enclave and go to Sharia law and things of that nature. I mean, they've got some real problems over in Europe about this, in Spain and in France, in England. In fact, those three countries, they've had a lot of problem with this. And, the whole thing about Sharia law being over our Constitution, that can't happen. It's not the prime law of the country. The Constitution is. So just because of the supremacy clause, I would think that we would be able to tell them you can't use Sharia law as the your law for your community or whatever. Marcus, what was it in this that something about hunting? They were saying this is to keep white supremacists at bay and all kinds of weird stuff. Different people were saying things that you weren't even bringing up to the.
Yeah, the white supremacy thing again. If you and on that, if you have a white supremacy, and it doesn't matter if you have any group that when they sell property to somebody that they don't disclose the fact that you're buying an interest and not actually the property, then that should be addressed. It doesn't matter who that is.
Right.
And then if they're forming up tribunals where you have somebody come in trying to get some kind of legal issue solved, and he's not going to get a fair hearing because it's already been determined that either by Sharia law or by whatever law that they may be following, the peer pressure. The problem is that it's who knows who a lot of times, and then with Sharia, then of course it's same type of deal. The individual personalities can come into play. That okay, this is a moderate Muslim that's bringing this issue to us, and he's bringing with one of the guys that I agree with more because he's more radical. So I'm going to rule against the moderate. I mean, in our own court systems, we have enough trouble and stuff. But generally speaking, I mean, the effort is made to be unbiased and try to come to the right decision. And we trust in our court systems. but I certainly wouldn't want to go in front of a Sharia court or anything else that's put together by a group and hope to come out with a fair hearing.
I can definitely understand that. I have to get to news. Can I hold you for one more segment?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. We'll be back with more here on the Dave Ellswick Show. But first, here's your news.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. Never a sure thing in the first place. Another round of U.S.-Iran talks is in doubt. An Iranian ship, a blockade runner, has been seized by the U.S. military, the latest confrontation between the U.S. and Iran. 5 people injured, a shooting near the University of Iowa City campus over the weekend. A horrific scene. It was a massacre in Shreveport, Louisiana. A man killed 8 children, including 7 of his own. He shot and wounded 2 women as well before he was fatally shot by police. The Bible is being read aloud this week in the nation's capital at the Museum of the Bible. Every verse from Genesis to Revelation being read out loud, the entire Bible to be read over the course of the week. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 43 points, the NASDAQ trading 123 points lower. More details, srnnews.com.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven you can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 844-94-BIBLE. That's 844-94-BIBLE. 844-94-BIBLE.
Looking for heavy equipment but don't know where to buy? Purple Wave Auction has you covered. Always online and always no reserve. It's your destination for construction or ag equipment ready to work. We even sell semis, trailers, and fleet equipment for your operation. Best part? It's free to join. Head to purplewave.com. That's purplewave.com. Sign up for a free account and start bidding today. Purple Wave Auction, the easiest and most straightforward way to buy and sell equipment.
Attention. If you suffer from consistent pain in your joints caused by arthritis, overuse, or injury, you may be a candidate for a revolutionary therapy that could revitalize damaged tissue. This approach can provide long-lasting relief from pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, and other joints with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. To find out if you're a viable candidate, you may request a free consultation from QC Kinetics by calling 501-833-5348. Instead of masking the symptoms, it goes to the root of the problem to resolve it at its source. Already used by thousands of satisfied patients nationwide, this joint pain therapy is available right now to the public, but only for qualified candidates. Again, to find out if you're a viable candidate for this therapy, you may request a free consultation by calling QC Kinetics at 501-833-5348. That's 501-833-5348.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media on the Scott Jennings podcast.
When Republicans have even a whiff of scandal, what do we hear? Resign, step down, zero tolerance. Where is the Democratic Party? Where is the outrage? Where is the moral clarity? What do we hear from cable news? Nothing.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
President Trump has triggered a $200 billion tech disruption, and Wall Street is asleep at the switch. This $200 billion investment in chip technology could make today's artificial intelligence chips obsolete. Technology that will make today's AI data centers a thing of the past, like IBM's old mainframes. While most investors are focused on old-fashioned AI, there are 3 companies quietly building a $1 trillion triangle that could transform every tech sector on Earth. These 3 companies companies are gearing up to develop and manufacture supercomputers the size of a dinner plate. Institutions like Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street are pouring more than $200 billion into this AI revolution. Investment guru George Gilder has been predicting tech revolutions for more than 40 years, including the iPhone, Netflix, and Amazon. Now he's got his finger on 3 companies whose technology will change tech forever. Log on to TrillionDollarTriangle.com to find out which 3 companies are working on what could be the biggest tech disruption since the internet. TrillionDollarTriangle.com. That's TrillionDollarTriangle.com.
Dave Ellswick is the conservative voice of Arkansas, and he's back. 101.1, The Answer.
All right, back here on the Dave Ellswick Live, and we appreciate State Representative Marcus Richmond holding on for one more segment here. Marcus, what's your hope now? Do you want to bring this back during general session? Is that what you're going to try to do? And did you get to talk to any members of the committee afterwards and find out what their problems were with this particular piece of legislation?
Well, I know that it's going to come back. I won't be bringing it back. I've been down there 12 years. I decided not to run again, but I know it's going to be brought back. There's some good people that are also concerned, so it will come back in the next session. And I did talk to many members, and and the thing is that just about all of them said, with the exception of Democrats, of course, they're never going to vote for anything that's going to help the people. But they all, I know what you're trying to do, and I support what you're trying to do. And I said, well, you had a chance to vote for it, and you decided not to. So don't necessarily need that kind of support. But the individuals, and here's the problem, and it's like complacency. That's why Western Europe went the way it did. That's why England went the way it did. That's why a lot of towns and things are going the way they are. Complacency is the number one killer on the battlefield. And we have here in this country complacency, which is, part of the issue. And again, is that, we are going to protect religious freedoms, at least we say we are, and it is in our Constitution. So there's a certain amount of concern about violating that. And then there's a certain amount of concern that I have in that the people do not look at what has happened in other places, and they don't have the same fear that I have because they haven't seen it happen. They haven't been part of it in some manner. And they don't realize or recognize the fact that this is not only a religion, it's a political system.
Mm-hmm.
And that they are not tolerant. Again, I'm not talking about the moderates because they are moderate, but eventually they're told to toe the line too. And it's not a tolerant system to those that are unbelievers. And if it is allowed, it will continue to spread in this country to a point where there's going to be some very difficult problems because Sharia law, they look at that as God's law. And that trumps everything else. That trumps the Constitution. That trumps your individual liberties, freedoms, all of it. And they will tell you that it's going to make us all live in much better harmony because we're living under God's law. The problem with that is the fact that men created this particular law as well. And so it's not God's law. You can only find God's law in the Bible. And so, I have concern that that the people are going to want to not get their hands on it because, again, it's one of these things you see folks, they vote and go, look how open-minded I am. I am the most open-minded person that I know because even though some people are telling me that this is a threat, I'm not going to accept that because I am open-minded. And they will allow that to drive them to ignore what is really has proven to be a serious problem in other parts of the world and parts of this country as well.
So, just a second, Paul. Marcus, I always say, they become so open-minded that their brain ran out.
Yeah.
I mean, they refuse to even think about certain things. They don't want to contemplate certain things. But you are right. when you look over into Europe, we can see the problems that have occurred. You can look in, countries like England and France where they set up enclaves in cities for the Muslim religion and Sharia law, and there are no-go zones. I mean, people who don't believe the way they do are not, offered, free reign into those areas. They're told to stay out. So this is kind of just, I think you're offering a shot over the bow to try to bring everybody up to date on this. But you do believe that you have other people that will pursue this when the general session starts next year?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's people that helped and did a lot of the work as far as the research and stuff that are there in the House, and they come to me and ask me if I would run it because of I have dealt with and have more experience maybe than anybody in there with this type of situation because of my military experience and and living among them and having firsthand observation of how this system works. And they're going to bring it up. I know that the Senate, if this runs down the Senate, it might pass out of the Senate. I don't know what we'll do with it then, but I would encourage the senators that has it to go ahead and run it down there and see what happens down there on that end. And then it'll force us to make another decision about it. We may not do anything, or maybe we will. I don't know. But I know it will come up next year. My thing is that every minute matters. Every minute counts. And so, taking the easy route of going, hey, I'm not going to be back, this is not going to be my problem, or the same easy route in that, we can address it later on. It'll be easier to get it on the agenda. We won't have to do any of these special resolutions and stuff to get it on the agenda. I just think that every minute you wait, they get stronger. And it's something that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. And that may be next year. All
right. So before I let you go, let me ask Paul if you had any other questions.
I did. So we were talking earlier in the show kind of about some of this, with the religious freedom issue. I think it's a mistake to say, well, we should have special rights for religious practices as opposed to just having liberty and justice. And so I don't think there should be a special right for religions to do things that are harmful to people. I think it should just be you're allowed to engage in liberty in a just way, but there's no special carve-outs for religious practices. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it makes complete sense because, again, no matter what we're doing, and it doesn't matter Christian or Muslim or anything else, you're dealing with men.
Right.
And men make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Even when they're trying to do the right thing. We as Christians, we make mistakes all the time.
For sure.
And it's one of those things. I look back. This is very simple. This is just really not asking much. Remember Waco and how the federal government responded to Waco? Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious. We're not anywhere near that. We're just saying, hey, pay attention what's happening here, and let's make sure that this doesn't get started in a way where one of these days you're going to have people telling grocery stores that they either stop selling pork and other products they disagree with, such as beer or whatever.
Sure.
Or they're going to, we're going to maybe trash the place, or we're going to boycott it or whatever.
Well, or pass.
We don't need young girls that happen to be walking by being accosted and saying, cover your hair on this. We certainly don't need, as non-believers, when I was in Saudi Arabia, I was over there with my family initially until they had to be evacuated because of all the bombings and crap that was going on. But I couldn't let my daughter or my wife go to the markets. Initially they did, but I couldn't let them go to the market without me there, somebody I trusted. because the men wouldn't keep their hands off of them. And because they were non-believers, it didn't matter.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I have some personal issues with that type of behavior from them that I do have some issues about being able to trust them.
Marcus, I want to thank you for joining us today. If you would you talk to Val and give us a couple of names and numbers of people who will be still pursuing this so we can get the latest on that, and make yourself available to join us some other time on the show in the future.
Sure thing. I appreciate you having me on. Best of luck to you guys, and I appreciate what you do.
All right. Thank you very much. That's State Representative Marcus Richmond here on the Dave Ellswick Show. He brings up some good, questions. We have to look at what we have in certain areas of the United States and places that they have not dealt with this question before, allowing other groups of this nature to get footholds. They're fighting a battle in Texas right now over in the Dallas area about an area that is going to have Sharia law. Now, the governor of Texas has said that's not going to happen, but they've not passed anything saying that it can't happen.
And so I guess where it comes down to is, are they doing this as like a private organization, like a church? So if what was it, like Amish or Amish or maybe the Baptist or whoever else that say, you know what, we're going to start this homeowner association, but it's only for Baptist or only for Amish, and you have to follow our dress code. You have to, you can't drink beer, you can't, whatever it might be, but it's only as a private organization. They don't go out and arrest people who are outside walking on the sidewalk outside the community, but they do enforce it on their own members, and maybe their enforcement mechanism is we kick you out.
Well, but I've seen different homeowners associations try to pass, laws for everybody who's in a certain, neighborhood or whatever. And it gets to a certain point that the courts say, you don't make that decision for everybody.
And I don't know where that line is, but a lot of times they can do some pretty ridiculous stuff.
No, there's been people with it. A few years ago, it was wrong for people to fly the American flag in their neighborhood.
Right. So I think I heard of one recently that had a flag law in their bylaws or whatever it was, where they could have a flag on their house but not in their yard. So if they wanted to put a flagpole in their yard, it wasn't allowed. They could put something on their house, I think. And
well, here's the deal. So 2 weeks ago, Attorney General in Texas, Ken Paxton, demanded documents from the Dallas-based Islamic mediation group he accused of unlawfully acting as a court and imposing Sharia law. So in a press release, he alleged the religious organization, which issues rulings in disputes involving Texas Muslims, implies it has governmental authority acting outside of First Amendment protections that allow religious institutions to govern themselves. That Attorney General announced his office had sent the Islamic Tribunal a request to examine documents to determine if the organization is engaged in illegal activity. He said that anyone or any entity that seeks to subvert the codified state and federal laws of this country will be stopped dead in their tracks. If the Islamic Tribunal is undermining the rule of law or misleading Texans about the legal authority it claims to hold, my office will ensure its operation is shut down. This is America, and we will not be governed by Sharia law. So apparently Paxton's legal action comes after Greg Abbott instructed local and state officials in Dallas and Collin counties to investigate the Islamic Tribunal and other Islamic mediation groups. So that's what he's trying to circumvent here. So that we're just saying you can't use these Islamic mediators because they're like literally handling this whole EPIC city, which stands for the East Plano Islamic Community. And they're changing that. Actually, they're changing that to the Meadows now, so it's less harm.
From what I can tell from what Marcus said, that he's also trying to head off, and I agree with him. You shouldn't be buying a house, and then you buy the house and you find out you're not really paying for the house. Mm-hmm. You're paying for an interest in this group. There's got to be a clarification there that is very bright. And very, you're drawn to that so that for fact that it's your property.
You thought you bought a house and you ended up.
Well, these groups, they said on their website, they've since updated it since this, but to emphasize that its practices are strictly spiritual. It does not practice law, function as a court, issue legally binding decisions, or provide legal advice. The group seems to have removed the mention of Sharia law from its website after this. The term Sharia refers to teachings and traditions of the Islamic faith. So they were.
And so some of the discussion I was at the committee meeting on Wednesday. Some of the concerns of some of the legislators was that, like, currently under a lot of contract law, one of the specified ways of dealing with disputes is through arbitration rather than going to court. It's cheaper that way, I think, or it's less complicated maybe. And so that's a common thing in regular contracts, is that you don't go to court, you go to arbitration, and it's predetermined who's going to make those decisions. And I'm not sure what to think about that, whether that's reasonable or not, but it's a thing that's going on now. And the other thing is, what it kind of sounds like on some level is almost like what you have with administrative laws right now, or administrative rules, is that they make up rules and then they also make the decisions on whether or not you're guilty, if you will. And so you have to go before them to determine if you're guilty or not. And you don't get in front of a court unless you take extraordinary measures to get in front of a court to get your rights, to exercise your rights to trial, if you will. And so I think a lot of times you have to actually pay to get in front of the courts when an administrative body has attacked you in some way or gone after you.
All right, we got to take a break. Then we'll come back, finish up for the Monday show here on the Dave Ellswick Show.
There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute.
101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Start your morning with a voice you know and trust. Dave Ellswick, bringing you the issues that matter to Arkansas, the news behind the headlines, and conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Then in the afternoon, stay informed and fired up with Doc Washburn, breaking down the biggest stories of the day and what they mean for you. And all day long, hear from some of the biggest voices in talk radio. CNN's Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, and Larry Elder, bringing you sharp insight, lively debate, and the perspective you've been looking for. News, opinion, insight, and the conversations shaping our community. From Little Rock to the natural state and beyond. This is 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. For decades, Dennis Prager shared his wisdom with listeners around the world through his lectures, courses, interviews, and debates. Now, for the first time, the collective wisdom of Dennis Prager is being made available as a podcast. Listen to Timeless Wisdom with Dennis Prager, with new episodes released for a limited time only as a podcast. Subscribe for free today at DennisPrager.com. That's Timeless Wisdom with Dennis Prager, exclusively at DennisPrager.com. 101.1, The Answer, weather.
If this forecast holds, we are in for a beautiful start to the work week. High of 81 today under sunshine, 60 for the low tonight, a few clouds and sun tomorrow, and a high all the way up to 85.
Now, back to the Dave Ellswick Show, 101.1, The Answer.
Well, coming up tomorrow, Ryan Norris will join us in the first couple of hours of the show. He's, of course, the Arkansas chair of Americans for Prosperity. He'll join us and talk about his trip that he took this last week up to the Hill in Washington, D.C. We'll find out what people are feeling like up there in D.C. Were we going to take Grover? Is he coming on Tuesday or Wednesday?
Friday.
Oh, he's going to go. I was way off. Friday, he's going to be with us. Okay, so we got Grover Norquist coming up later in the week, too. Keep listening. We'll tell you what time and whatnot, because I know people like to know when he's coming so they can hear his opinions on taxes and things of that nature. Thought that was a great segment with State Representative Marcus Richmond. He kind of laid it all out for you about what that bill was all about. If you ask me, I think it's going to be other people that carry it next year, because he's going to be a state rep until the beginning of the year, and then he's going to be done. Somebody else has taken his position. But the bottom line is that forewarned is forearmed, and you better understand what is going on in our country right now.
I think it's something that needs to be addressed, or at least be studied in depth, because I think there's a strong argument that the Muslims really are dangerous people, and that the Orthodox ones are problematic. The reality is that there are lots of different types of people, and some of them are not Orthodox. They're what we might call backsliders, and they're not dangerous because they're not really they're not serious about being a Muslim, and so they don't hurt people. And maybe I don't understand the Muslim faith accurately, but from what I hear, and if Marcus Richmond is correct on this, that their code book authorizes them to be violent towards those who they're trying to evangelize.
Well, I wouldn't call the Quran a code book. It's a religious text that they live by.
Right. So, but whatever you want to call it, it's their creed or whatever it is that they use, and then so I think people can read the Bible and see that New Testament believers are supposed to evangelize, but not with violence. And I think that can be borne out just by reading the text.
Oh, yeah.
But if you can read the text of the Muslim faith and see that, they're authorizing and encouraging their people to use violence as they proselytize or evangelize to others, and if they don't comply. Now, the thing is that if you just go by past history of Christendom, you could see that there were violent people that were promoting belief in God. But they were wrong. They were in violation of the text, and so you could, I think, make a distinction between those two. If I understand it correctly, the Muslims aren't just radical and going beyond the text; they're actually in compliance with the text. If I understand it correctly, when they're being violent and coercive and murderous, if you will.
Right. Well, Paul, let me thank you for being here today.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you coming in on Mondays. And we'll be back with you again tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. I'll see you on the radio then. 9 o'clock, we're going to talk about euthanasia, picking up speed in Canada. And it's just that's our next door neighbor.
Human
Human euthanasia. Wow.
You got to be. You need to pay attention to what's going on. We told you about the situation over in Europe. It's getting out of control over there. Now it looks like it's really raising its ugly head in Canada as well. We'll talk about it in the 9 o'clock hour here on the Dave Ellswick Show. It's all coming your way. I will see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. That's when I'll be with you on the radio. See you on the radio. Have a great day.
Find us at 1011FM, theanswer.com. Download our apps, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv. KTXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Doubts are strong as to the next round of U.S.-Iran peace talks. Tehran says the death toll in the war is rising. And the conference on long-term peace in Israel is also among the topics being discussed. Here are some of the updates from correspondent Charles De La Desma.
The U.S. Navy's seizure of an Iranian-flagged cargo ship has cast doubt on President Donald Trump's announcement of upcoming talks with Iran over the ceasefire. Trump had said U.S. negotiators would head to Pakistan on Monday. Iran's foreign ministry states it has no plans to attend at this point. Meanwhile, the head of Iran's forensic medicine organization says